Chapter 2700. China had taken out so many self-developed weapons during the celebration ceremony. There were missiles, cannons, strategic nuclear missiles, tactical missiles, and intercontinental missiles. All of them had been unveiled for the first time. How frightening was that! Not only did the Western countries think China was poor, but so did the neighboring countries in Asia. In the end, they brought out strategic nuclear missiles and intercontinental missiles during the celebration. They were shocked and wary at the same time. This was the first time China sent out troops to participate in a competition that had never been invited before. There were probably more than 1 or 2 countries that wanted to test the strength of China's special forces. Yi Qian nodded slightly. It was more reliable to keep a low profile and be cautious at times like this. The SEALs, Team 9 and Team 9 are all ace special forces. It's important for us to learn from them and learn from their strength. Moreover, it's rare to see 3 ace special forces together. We have to seize the opportunity. Yi Qian had already caught up with the rhythm. He sincerely thought that the decision made by China's military leaders was very wise. The American Special Forces had already become a comprehensive special force, and the American SEALs were a special force that hid 3 assault forces. They had the most outstanding soldiers, the most advanced weapons, and the most efficient training. It was only right for the Snowfield Brigade to learn from them. There was one more thing that needed to be mentioned. Although the SEALs were one of the world's ace special forces and had such a high reputation, the outside world rarely knew what missions this commando team would carry out and where they would train. No one knew when they would appear and when they would disappear. They only knew that the members of the SEALs were all highly skilled. They could climb mountains, dive into the sea, and even soar in the blue sky. The more Yi Jian thought about it, the more excited she became. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see them up close. He definitely couldn't miss it. Xia Jinyuan, who was walking with her, already felt her excitement. Just as his thin lips curved slightly, he heard her say, "How are we going to sneak up to them? We have to get close to them to be able to learn from them. What will they do when the time comes? It'll be difficult for us to get close to them." Not only did the problems not decrease, but they also increased. Li Jinyan, who always had a cold expression, couldn't help but laugh. His voice was low and sweet, surprisingly pleasant to the ears. "Don't worry, there will naturally be opportunities to learn from them when the time comes. You better keep up with our pace. Don't drag us down." With such a good opportunity to learn, how could Yi Qian allow himself to be a burden? In the following week, Yi Qian's desperate training made her comrades from the Snowfield Brigade and the Storm Commandos shudder in fear. This was the first time they had seen a female soldier working so hard. Yi Qian was a man of action, and he was also a man who was determined to improve himself. Not only did he go in and out with the male soldiers, he also gave himself extra training at night. Even Li Jinyan was secretly surprised by the intensity of his training. Li Jinyan was still a little worried. He looked at Yi Qian, who was submerged in the water and had not moved for 3 hours. He said to Xia Jinyuan, "If this goes on, are you sure she'll be fine? She's already been submerged in the water for 4 hours. The year she joined your team for intensive water training, the time she spent in the water was longer than this, right? She was fine in the past, so there's no need to worry about anything happening now." Chapter 2701. Xia Jinyuan stared at Yi Jian, who only exposed her nose. She hid very well as if she grew up with the aquatic plants. There was no heartache in his deep black eyes, only determination. She is a female soldier. Female soldiers have a harder time than male soldiers. It's better to suffer now than to suffer on the battlefield later. I don't need to say this. You should understand. Why? Now that Qing Niao is your sister, you're soft-hearted? Li Jinyan pursed his lips and glanced at Xia Jinyuan. He said coldly, "If I were soft-hearted because she's my sister, I wouldn't have practiced with her at night. She hasn't rested since yesterday. Now that she's soaked in the water, I'm afraid she'll faint. If you were in the water and I were in the grass with her, I wouldn't be so worried. Since the main goal of the training was to ambush, all the training missions began with ambushes. This time, Xia Jinyuan, Li Jinyan, and Yi Qian were on the receiving end of the ambush, while K7 and the others were on the attacking side. The group of 15 people was divided into 2 teams. One team had 3 people, and the other had 12 people. They were now guarding the position, waiting for K7 and the others to arrive. Xia Jinyuan sneered. If we really want to switch, it'll be you hiding in the water, and Qing Niao and I lying in the grass. Brother-in-law, you have to be kind. How can you try to ruin my relationship with Qing Niao? Brother-in-law? Q King, are you sure you've passed my uncle's test? Once you've passed my uncle's test, it won't be too late for you to claim kinship with me. Hearing the devil's cold reply, Lieutenant Colonel Xia smirked. My future father-in-law even told Qing Niao that I'm a good team leader and that I can learn from him. You have a good impression of me. You'll pass my future father-in-law's test sooner or later. Wait for me, brother-in-law. How thick-skinned. Li Jinyan wanted to kick him and leave a footprint on that thick-skinned man. Coming. Stay close. As this thought flashed through his mind, the thick-skinned man suddenly lowered his voice. His aura changed drastically in an instant. After the murderous aura, there was a restrained calmness, as if he had become one with the mountain, the ground, the trees, and the grass. Li Jinyan knew that he couldn't see through the guy beside him. Just a second ago, he wasn't serious, but the next moment, he was giving you the most serious look, and he could even scare people. Just like now. His aura was restrained, but the cold light from his eyes seemed to be able to destroy the mountains and rivers. It was exceptionally cold. Yi Qian saw Xia Jinyuan's hand gesture. She had been hiding in the seaweed for 4 hours, holding her breath and quietly waiting for her comrades to arrive. Beside her legs, a water snake as thick as a thumb and more than a meter long slithered about. The snake's tail swept past Yi Qian's knees and coiled around his upper body. The snake's head was only a few centimeters away from Yi Qian's nose. Yi Qian had already seen the water snake. At the same time, she quickly determined whether it was non-poisonous. Flat-headed, gray-scaled. A non-poisonous water snake. Since it was a non-poisonous water snake, Yi Qian ignored it. She only held her breath slightly so as not to disturb the water snake that was parallel to her head. Although it wasn't poisonous, it would still hurt if it bit her face. Yi Qian didn't disturb the water snake. The snake's head slithered forward and finally left Yi Qian, allowing her to heave a sigh of relief. The forest was quiet in the morning, but there was also a sense of liveliness that made people feel relaxed and happy. It was the sound of birds chirping through the treetops and spreading in all directions. They were chirping happily. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed slightly when she heard footsteps. Chapter 2702. Ambushes did not differentiate between day and night, and they only had one goal: to kill the opponent and protect themselves. Footsteps came from above, but then she heard the sound of water behind her. This was the water demons from the storm commandos entering the water. This was their strength. Yi Qian did not panic, and she did not move carelessly. Underwater movement was the water demon's strength, but she was not that bad either. She had already occupied an advantageous position in advance, and all she had to do was find the right opportunity to strike. It was 3 against 12, and each of them had to deal with 4 ambushes. The water demons entered the water very gently, just like fish swimming into the water. Only layers of ripples spread out. Yi Qian, who was hiding in the water grass, did not move. She waited until the ripples in front of her became smaller and slower, and then she dived into the water as well. The water and the land were 2 different worlds. The land was bright and clear, while the water was dark and murky, full of the unknown. Yi Qian, who was hiding in the water grass near the shore, held her breath and slowly lowered her head into the water. Yi Qian, who had entered the water, saw her target. Judging from the figure, it should be the big eel. This was a group of water demons who had undergone special training, but might not go abroad with her. The natural lakes inland were full of unknown dangers. No one knew how deep they were, and no one knew what kind of creatures lived underwater. The natural lakes in Tibet looked green, bright, and clean, but when one entered the water, one would know that the green was because of the depth and the water grass. The big eel had not discovered her hiding in the water grass. Yi Qian carefully turned her neck to look forward, left and right. There was no one at the moment, her back was close to the shore. She just needed to be alert to her left, right, and front. Without the help of a breathing device, and encountering a water demon who was good at underwater combat, a direct attack was the best way. But the water demons would think the same. Yi Qian quickly denied. The big eel was very cautious. He did not know who he would encounter when he entered the water, but he had to enter the water because he was cooperating with his comrades to test the people hiding in the water below. The big eel went down to hook the fish, and the big mermaid waited for the fish to take the bait. Demon King, let's make a bet. Let's see if the Qing Niao can kill the big eel. Xia Jinyuan admired Xue Gui's stealthy immersion style of fighting. He sent Yi Qian to train with him because he hoped that she could learn from him so that it would be easier for her to get used to it in the future. At this moment, she was a little interested in her former masters, Xia Jinyuan. Li Jinyan maintained his cold expression and replied, "The Qing Niao will lose, but the big eel won't gain much of an advantage. In the end, the big mermaid will benefit." In the water, the soldiers he brought out lost to Qing Niao. He felt ashamed. That's not necessarily true, Demon King. Qing Niao is the most unpredictable. The corners of Xia Jinyuan's mouth curled up even more. His eyes were full of confidence. I bet that Qing Niao won't be the one to lose. This was because Qing Niao was very good at judging the situation and knew how to make her sneak attack succeed. His confidence made Li Jinyan narrow his eyes slightly. What he meant by unpredictable meant that she might not necessarily go underwater to compete with the big eel. Instead, she chose to Li Jinyan, who had his gaze on the shore, also curled his lips slightly. He understood what Q King meant. If she could not defeat him underwater, she would turn to land. Yi Qian, who had entered the water again, knew that it would be difficult for her to defeat the big eel, so she changed her mind. Water to land. There were people on land who had been watching the water. As long as she poked her head out, they would definitely observe her. It was not that she did not have a chance to go ashore. As long as she went ashore, everything would be fine. Chapter 2703. Her hands slowly grabbed onto the shrubs growing from the shore. In the blink of an eye, there was the sound of splashing water. Her wet figure appeared in the sunlight like a fox that had fallen into the water. With a nimble leap and 2 rolls, she plunged into the shrubs. The big merman who was guarding outside stared at the black figure that dashed past his line of sight. He softly said, "That's fast." It was so fast that before he could do anything, the black figure had already entered the shrubs. The big merman could tell that it was Yi Qian's figure. When the big eel underwater heard the sound, he knew that something bad had happened. He didn't know who had returned from underwater, but he and the big merman's fishing operation had failed. Xia Jinyuan gave the Demon King a provocative look. "What do you think of my soldier? Not bad, right?" "Not bad." Li Jinyan nodded and admitted, "I've always thought that my sister is very talented." Unable to continue chatting, Xia Jinyuan turned his head away and stopped watching. Next, it was Yi Qian's turn to deal with the target that had entered the targeted area. He just had to watch from the sidelines. A sneak attack was also a confrontation, especially when both sides knew of each other's existence. It became a silent confrontation. The big eel underwater began to swim quickly. He needed to get away from the location of the sound of water and return to the shore. Yi Qian had already slowly moved. She was the one being attacked, but she could also take the initiative to attack the target. There were still people on the shore, and they were not far from her. She couldn't search directly, but she also needed to do a carpet search. Yi Qian, who was lying in the shrubs, began to sweat. Her combat uniform began to heat up from the sun's rays. She began to move again. After moving to a position where the trees were densely packed, Yi Qian stood up and quickly hid behind a tree. Her sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, and finally locked onto the tree that was wrapped in vines. Climbing trees was also a skill that a Special Forces soldier had to know. She stuck one hand into the vines and used the dark green leaves of the vines to hide her hands and body that were hugging the trunk. Yi Jian hugged the trunk and climbed to a high place with a few huffs and puffs. Xia Jinyuan also acted at the same time. He went to deal with the big eel that was preparing to go ashore. The eel had little chance of winning against Xia Jinyuan. As soon as it came out of the water, Xia Jinyuan, who had been waiting for it, pounced on it like a tiger pouncing on its prey. The big eel on the shore resisted. It raised its hand to block Xia Jinyuan's dagger and hit Xia Jinyuan's chin with its elbow. During the special training, all of them had to use real sword. Only the bullets were empty. When the real saber entered the field, it was more like a fight against the enemy. Blanks were shot directly at him. Yi Qian pulled on the vine tightly and slid down a little from the 2-meter-tall tree. Then, he let go of the vine and jumped up. She was looking for the target. At the same time, the target also found the swaying vine leaf. The gunshots suddenly stopped. Xia Jinyuan, who had taken care of Big Eel, could not tell who had fired the shot. He only knew that his pistol was pressed against Big Eel's forehead. He had taken care of one of the 4 targets. "You've worked hard. You can take a break now." Xia Jinyuan put away his pistol. At this moment, his murderous aura disappeared, leaving only sharpness. Big Eel, who was covered in sweat, reached out his hand. The two of them clasped hands and bumped shoulders. "You were Qing Niao just now, right? If you were the devil, you would have killed me in the water." Qing Niao knew she couldn't beat you in the water, so she came out of the water. "I guessed it was her too. Let me take a break. There's another wave tonight." After confirming who it was, Big Eel rubbed his sore chest and panted as he went to rest. Chapter 2704. Being an opponent of Q King was simply deadly. Both the sword and the gun were on the field, and it seemed like he would finish them off in the next second. Yi Qian, who had dodged the Great Mermaid's attack, hid himself without making a single move. Since the Great Mermaid had fired her gun, it meant that Yi Qian knew his approximate location. As a result, the battle between the two of them began, and it was time to see who would find the other first. Yi Qian, who had climbed up the tree again, hid in the dense foliage. His eyes were like an eagle soaring in the blue sky, watching every movement on the ground. As soon as the prey appeared, he would attack immediately. The shrubs that were 1/2 meter tall brushed lightly, as if there were small animals moving underneath. The corners of Yi Qian's mouth were already slightly raised. He didn't move and just stared ahead, quietly waiting for the prey to enter. The Storm Commandos had been training with the Snowfield Brigade, and they had all learned how to play ruthlessly in the dark. Now that they were on land, they were well-known figures. They had a good foundation, and they had been trained by the Devil King. From last year to this year, their comprehensive skills had been improving. In the words of the Navy commander, the Storm Commandos will definitely become an amazing tripod special force. And in the future, the Storm Commandos would be in the light, while the Snowfield Brigade would be in the dark. One in the light and one in the dark, the two sharp blades would cut through all obstacles and maneuver unhindered. By the time the Great Mermaid realized that she had been targeted, it was already too late. A black shadow passed through the leaves, and with the glaring sunlight, it pounced on her fiercely with the speed of a cheetah. After the Great Mermaid reacted, she rolled on the spot and tried to dodge. There was no way to dodge at all. Her leg was tripped and she fell to the side. With one hand on the ground, the Great Mermaid raised her leg and kicked, quickly and fiercely preparing to meet the attack. At this time, they were no longer comrades who had trained together, but a fierce battle where only one of them could survive. There was no mercy, and they had no choice but to be ruthless. 12 people ambushing 3 people. If they were to lose, it would be a bit embarrassing. However, among the 3 of them, one was the Devil King, one was Q King, and one was Qing Niao, who didn't play by the rules. The chances of winning and losing were 50 to 50. It wasn't that easy to win, but to lose? They had never thought about it. The big mermaid who didn't want to lose already knew who had ambushed her. It was Qing Niao who didn't play by the rules. Close combat was all about one move, one's strength, and one's reflexes. With these 3 combined, one's chances of winning would be higher. Yi Qian knew that his strength was slightly weaker than the male soldiers, but he could use his moves and agility to make up for the lack of strength. The Great Merman kicked with one leg, but Yi Qian grabbed his calf and twisted it in the opposite direction. Without mercy, Yi Qian only had one thought in his mind, and that was to defeat the Great Mermaid. She didn't show any mercy, but the big merman wasn't surprised at all. This was a life and death training, a training where there was a certain chance of death. It was normal for her to die. What's more, they were undergoing special training. When they came out, they had all signed the life and death agreement. The big mermaid didn't want to break a bone. After seeing through Yi Qian's tactics, he followed the direction of the leg and turned his body. With his quick reflexes, he dodged the bone fracture. Li Jinyan heard the fighting inside, and his gun was already silently aimed at another figure, a figure who was planning to sneak over to help the big mermaid. Bang! The sound of a blank bullet rang out, and the birds in the area flapped their wings and flew up in fright. The figure who was shot touched his chest, and his face was cold. Although the bullet was a safe blank bullet within a certain distance, it would still hurt if it hit the body. This feeling was really unpleasant. Even if it was unpleasant, it couldn't be helped. It had already been dealt with. Chapter 2705. Yi Qian heard the gunshots and knew that she was in a dangerous area. If she didn't take care of the Great Merman, she would be taken care of. Yi Jian pulled out the unnotched combat dagger and attacked even more fiercely. She picked up, stabbed, and chopped the dagger like a Roman gladiator. She held the dagger with her right hand and stabbed directly at Meng Qi. The Roman gladiator's dagger combat relied on physical strength as well as speed and technique. Although it was aggressive, it wasn't as strong as the Thracian gladiator, which relied on physical strength to attack. She used her attacks to surround the Great Merman and achieve her goal. This time, the Great Merman had a hard time dodging, especially when Yi Qian used her backstabbing technique. The Great Merman's back arm was cut by the unsharpened dagger. If the dagger had been sharpened and the groove was pulled out, his arm would have been cut so deep that his bones could be seen. Before he could block her dagger, the dagger that was clearly raised high kicked towards his lower abdomen along with her right leg. When he dodged, her left hand had quickly and nimbly caught the dagger in her right hand and stabbed downward. Good technique. The Great Merman couldn't help but applaud Yi Qian's dagger combat skills. You flatter me. Yi Qian raised her eyebrows and stabbed downwards 3 times in a row. Her left leg attacked from below at the same time, forcing the Great Merman to dodge sideways. Hiss! The Great Merman, who had been dodging sideways, gasped in shock. His heart was pierced by Yi Jian's dagger. Although the unsharpened dagger didn't pierce through his heart, the dull pain lingered in his heart for a long while, lingering in his heart. The Great Merman, whose arm was burning with pain, ended the fight. He had lost. I didn't expect Qing Niao's dagger combat skills to be so strong. You surprised me. The Great Merman rubbed his arm again, and smiled brightly on his tanned face. I admit defeat in a dagger combat. Yi Qian smiled and put away her dagger. She seemed to have thought of something and answered the Great Merman with a smile. In the past, I couldn't win because I didn't have a weapon. But now, a cannonball can kill a battalion, a company, or even a regiment. Dagger fighting has already fallen behind. It's only suitable for sneak attacks when it's inconvenient to shoot. That may be the case, but dagger combat is still quite important. Sometimes, when we need to launch sneak attacks underwater, we have to use our hands to take out the sentries. Using guns will only alert the enemy. Dagger fighting will not fall behind. It has its own place, and it will be used when you need it the most. Just like the Great Mermaid pointed at her chest and patted her arm, which was still burning with pain. Just like now, my strength has come out and I've been killed by you. There is still a gap between us and the Snowfield Brigade. We still need to strengthen our training. Yi Qian didn't deny the Big Mermaid's words. There was even a deep smile in his eyes. He blinked and said with a smile, "But last time, I heard you say to K7 that close combat will be eliminated one day." Hearing this, the Great Mermaid was stunned for a few seconds, while Air chuckled softly. "So, this is the lesson you want to teach me? You can say that," Yi Qian admitted generously. His eyes were open and clear, making the scolded Great Mermaid even more humble. "I won't do it again. I'll remember today's lesson." Hearing the Great Mermaid's answer, Yi Qian smiled faintly. Uncle Chun and Uncle Jen had once told her that close combat was the last protective talisman. If a Special Forces soldier couldn't even pass close combat and dagger combat, then this Special Forces soldier was just for show. Chapter 2706. Dagger combat was a skill that the Snowfield Brigade had to master. Fighting in the dark was a tradition of the team, and being ruthless in the dark was a specialty of the team. Some people thought that dagger combat had long fallen behind. They even said that if you were sneaking around, you would be blasted into the sky by a cannonball. This was a classic example of how easy it was to say. To give a simple example, when rescuing hostages, could you blast the criminals with a cannonball and clear the hostages at the same time? Therefore, even if information warfare became more widespread in the future, and long-range combat became the dominant force in the future battlefield, sneak attacks would always exist. They could never fall behind. It was the same for dagger combat. Yi Qian accidentally heard the Great Mermaid say that close combat would be eliminated one day. Today, he had the opportunity to let the Great Mermaid know that close combat would not be eliminated. After being taught a lesson, the Great Mermaid and the Great Eel sat together. The Great Eel immediately turned his back to his comrade. "Help me massage my back. I fell hard and crushed my shoulder blade." "Who did you go up against? I didn't see you lose after a few moves." The Great Mermaid immediately massaged his comrade's injured left shoulder blade and said with interest, "I went up against Qing Niao and was taught a lesson by her. I feel like Qing Niao's personality is much more outgoing than before. In the past, when she trained with us, other than talking to us during training, she usually likes to sit alone and stare blankly at the sea for hours." The Great Mermaid was clenching her teeth from being massaged. Hearing this, her facial features were still twisted as she replied, "A woman changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. It's normal for her to become stronger. How did Qing Niao teach you a lesson? When did you do anything that made her unhappy? Otherwise, why would she use the word teach? Last time when I was chatting with the G5, I said that close combat would be eliminated in the future war. She overheard it and took the opportunity to teach me a lesson today." The Great Mermaid pulled up her arm and bent her elbow to show her comrade. "Here, she cut me. Fortunately, it wasn't sharp, or else my bones would have been scratched." Then, he patted his chest where his heart was. "Here, she stabbed me in the back. It hurt so much that I thought the dagger had stabbed into my heart. A layer of cold sweat broke out on my back. In the end, she even purposely said that dagger combat has already fallen behind, and it's only suitable for sneak attacks when it's inconvenient to shoot. So I refuted her. Ha 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 ha, I fell right into her trap and slapped myself in the face. Qing Niao is now the second person on my list not to be trifled with. The second is not to be trifled with? Who was first? Rub my shoulders, rub my shoulders. My bones are aching. Demon King and Q King are tied for first place, and Qing Niao is second. I have to be careful when I see them in the future. Both of them are too good at keeping their cool. You can't even tell that they are trying to teach you a lesson. The big eel grinned. Then you'd better be careful. After Qing Niao teaches you a lesson, I wonder if the Demon King and Q King will make a move. Brother, you're on your own. Saying that close combat will be eliminated in front of special forces like the Snowfield Brigade, who are good at assassination, is it because you've been in the sea for too long that your brain has been flooded with water? The Snowfield Brigade soldiers, the Demon King warned us early on that they are a group of people who like to play ruthless in the dark. They are so ruthless that you have to avoid them when you see them in the future. How dare you say such things to them? Do you have a death wish? Chapter 2707. Speaking of the Great Merman, he smiled bitterly. Wasn't that just asking for death? Today, he had already been killed by Qing Niao. The next few days would not be easy. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan praised Yi Qian. Not bad. You don't have to stand up on the spot. Later on, find a suitable time to tell them what they shouldn't jump to conclusions. Let them remember it for the rest of their lives. Well done. Don't you think so, Demon King? The Demon King, who had heard the entire conversation, had a cold expression. Now, it was even colder, as if a thin layer of ice had been poured on top of a snowflake. Even his eyes were cold. Well taught. He still needs to remember. The Demon King had personally spoken. It could already be foreseen that the Great Merman would not have an easy time in the next few days. At night, the Demon King crept up from behind the Great Merman and pressed him to the ground from behind. One of his large hands pressed down on the back of the Great Merman's neck, while the other hand held both of his hands. He said coldly, shameless boasting. How dare you say that you will be eliminated from close combat in the future? I don't even need to wait for the future. I can eliminate you now. What was to come would come sooner or later. There was no escape even if he wanted to. Demon King, I know I was wrong. Please be gentler. My hands are about to be destroyed. Really, I was taught a lesson by Qing Niao during the day. I will remember it. The Great Merman's face was pale from the pain. Beads of sweat appeared on the tip of his nose. You're already admitting defeat at the beginning? Great Merman, there are more exciting things waiting for you. Also, don't let me hear such words again. The cold-faced Li Jinyan let go. His long legs moved, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dark forest. Xia Jinyuan slowly returned to the grass and smiled at Yi Qian. The Demon King's soldiers are not cowards. Their strength on land has greatly improved. In another 2 years, the Storm Triamphibious Assault Team will definitely become a powerful special naval force in the southern seas of our country. The Demon King lives up to his reputation. The military had chosen him to lead a special naval force. He was indeed worthy of being a leader. He had great foresight and foresight. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan both appreciated each other. Although they used to be rivals, they were now leading their own teams and achieving good results. Although they still secretly competed with each other, they no longer had the impulse to train together like they did when they were young. They only occasionally opposed each other. When Yi Qian heard this, he couldn't help but smile. My brother is definitely amazing. Otherwise, how could he be entrusted with such a heavy responsibility and become the leader of the Storm Commandos? After she finished speaking, the man beside her did not say anything for a long time. Yi Qian could not help but turn her head sideways and see that the man was staring at her without blinking. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? She asked, somewhat puzzled. I'm thinking, did you say that I'm powerful too? Thinking about it carefully, I don't think. I've mentioned it before. Lieutenant Colonel Xia sounded a little wronged, and the pitiful tone in his voice made Yi Qian pause for a moment. Thinking about it, it seemed that, indeed, he had never praised him in front of Captain Xia. In an instant Yi Qian felt uneasy. She cleared her throat and was about to speak when she heard the man beside her say with an aggrieved expression, "Come, come, come. Praise me too. My brother is powerful, but my boyfriend is even more powerful. I'll be very happy if you praise me like this." The uneasy Yi Qian swallowed the words that were already at the tip of her tongue. "You can't praise me anymore. If you continue to praise me, you won't know what your surname is." Yi Qian gently retreated and began to distance herself from him. "Where are you retreating to? You have to follow me tonight. It's rare that I don't have to fight. Let's watch how they ambush us together. How can you leave my line of sight?" Lieutenant Colonel Xia immediately retreated and headed to another ambush point. Chapter 2708. Yi Qian ignored Lieutenant Colonel Xia's pursuit, and the uneasiness in her heart disappeared without a trace. Although she had never said that Captain Xia was good, she had set him as her goal from the beginning and worked hard to catch up. Until today, he was still her goal, and it had never changed. She didn't need to say how good he was. Everything about her was enough to prove that he was really good, really good. Just now it was obvious that he did it on purpose, and she really fell for it. At night, it started to rain again in the mountains, from fine drips to a torrential downpour. Xia Jinyuan caught up with Yi Qian, who was waiting for him, and wiped the rainwater off his face. He chuckled and said, "Are you angry now? How angry are you? Or do you just want to ignore me for now?" "I'm not wrong. You didn't praise me for being good. Although the devil is your brother, we've always been competing in secret. Now that you're praising the devil, sigh, I feel sour and uncomfortable." "Competing in secret?" Yi Qian was confused. "When did you and my brother compete in secret? Why didn't I know about it?" "A long, long time ago when we were training in the same team. I wanted to be first, and he wanted to be first too. Since we didn't give in to each other, we naturally competed in secret. Tonight was their resting time." Xia Jinyuan, who had been tense the whole time, brought up an interesting story from the past. "We carried weights for 20 kilometers, and we hiked for an entire day. Now we carried weights for 20 kilometers. In the end, only I and the devil competed for first place. I thought so, and so did he. We fought and tripped each other all the way. In the end, neither of us reached the finish line. Both of us got heatstroke at the same time and couldn't even crawl. We were dragged to the car and sent to the hospital. That was the first time I competed with the devil. I immediately knew that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. The more it was like that, the more I wanted to compete with him. Our training, the situation was different, so sometimes you used some dirty tricks. As long as you won, the team wouldn't do anything to you. When we entered, the first thing the instructor said was the winner is king, and the loser is a bandit. You can use whatever tricks you have and use whatever skills you have. If you win, it's your skill. I guess the Demon King and I are the same kind of people. It just so happens that both of us have the same goal, which makes us even more competitive. Plus, they're of the same age, and they're young and energetic. On the surface, they seem to be friendly with each other, and they can even put their arms around each other's shoulders, but on the training ground..." Xia Jinyuan recalled the hellish training he had gone through for half a year and how he had met the Devil King. Even the heavy rain could not hide the smile on his face. "It's not an exaggeration to say that we fought to the death." As he spoke in a low voice, Yi Qian turned his attention away. Because of the rain, he drew closer to Xia Jinyuan. When he finished, Yi Qian laughed and said, "You fought to the death, and in the end you fought until you became friends, didn't you? Friends who appreciate each other. Although they compete in secret, they admire each other. Sometimes, even if you lose, do you lose willingly? The same goal." He remembered that Captain Xia once said that he later came to the Snowfield Brigade, while his brother went to the Navy and became the captain of the Storm Commandos. In that case, the two of them had the same goal back then, which was to fight for the position of captain of the Snowfield Brigade. That's right. That's why I later went to the Snowfield Brigade, and he was assigned to the Navy to take on a difficult task. Now we've both achieved our goals. Even if there were some unresolved problems in the past, they're all gone now. Chapter 2709. If you say that the devil is amazing, I'll admit that he's amazing. The Navy gave him such a big task. From the selection of the members of the Storm Commando Team to the establishment of the Commando Team, and then to the transformation of a new Marine Special Commando Team into a tri-amphibious integrated combat force, the Demon King's contributions are indispensable. From the looks of it, the devil is actually better than me. Yes, it's my brother-in-law who's better. You're right. In the end, Xia Jinyuan nodded seriously to express his affirmation of Yi Qian's words. Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not angry. I just feel a little uneasy after hearing what you said. Because I didn't directly say that you're amazing. The rain beat against the leaves, making a loud pitter-patter sound. Through the night vision goggles, Yi Qian saw the man who was only a fist away from her. His thin lips curved into a sexy smile, and his handsome face looked soft and warm. Her heart skipped a beat and she waved at the man, gesturing for him to come closer. Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and missed the flash of shyness on Yi Qian's face. In my heart, you'll always be my goal. You'll always be the most amazing person. She leaned over and whispered into his ear. Her voice was very soft, like a feather brushing against his ear. Then, it slowly fell into Xia Jinyuan's heart. Xia Jinyuan, whose eyebrows had softened, held Yi Jian's hand. Through the green world, he raised his head slightly and saw her shy look. His heart instantly melted into a puddle of water. She could still feel uneasy because of his word. It was obvious how important he was to her. His little fox really made his heart palpitate. Before he could say anything, K7's cold voice came through the earpiece and interrupted Xia Jinyuan. Who's near me? There's a bear nearby. Be careful. Xia Jinyuan adjusted his breathing and turned on the earpiece. Qing Niao and I are near you. Send me your location. The GPS coordinates were sent over. Yi Qian looked at the distance and frowned. It's only 700 meters. We're still within the bear's range. K7, stay at your original position. Everyone, pay attention. There is a bear nearby. Training will be suspended. Xia Jinyuan immediately issued a new order. At the same time, he contacted Devil King Li Jinyan. A bear has appeared. Training has been interrupted. Li Jinyan, who had already taken care of two of his team members, leaned against a tree and scanned the path ahead with his flashlight. His eyes were a little gloomy. Turn away from the position and move to higher ground. There's a small cave in here. It had been raining for 3 consecutive days. Not only did the rain not slow down, it seemed to be getting heavier. If it continued to rain, it might cause the mountain to collapse. Once the mountain collapsed, no matter how capable they were of facing a natural disaster, they would not be able to do anything. The training was interrupted, and everyone quickly moved to higher ground. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan could not move immediately. They could already see the bear in their line of sight. You guys go first. We've encountered a big guy. We have to make way for it. Xia Jinyuan lowered his voice. He switched to the public channel and quietly contacted all his comrades. An adult black bear. It's big and male. All his comrades could hear Xia Jinyuan's voice. Li Jinyan, who had already started to move, narrowed his eyes. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, Q King, I'll leave Qing Niao to you. Don't worry, you guys go first. We're on higher ground, facing the sun, and the soil is firm. Xia Jinyuan had already pulled Yi Qian to his side. Neither of them moved. They were afraid that if they moved, they would attract the bear that was obviously looking for food. Chapter 27:10. Black bears were protected by the country. Even though they were training, they could not accidentally injure a black bear. Among the wild animals in the mountains, they could eat wild hares and common pheasants. These two types of wild animals were the ones they caught the most. Since they provided protein, they also replenished their energy. About 50 meters away from them, an adult male with a V tattoo on its chest was rubbing its back against a tree. It was scratching itself. "Back off, Qing Niao." Xia Jinyuan raised his hand gently and spoke very softly. He did not dare to raise his voice. Although they were all special forces, they still had to fight to know if they could gain the upper hand against the black bear, who had thick skin and was born with great strength. Xia Jinyuan did not want to fight, so he could only go around it. Step by step, they slowly retreated. Yi Qian stared straight ahead. After retreating a few steps, he slowly turned around and retreated sideways step by step. Both of them had to keep their eyes on the front at all times. They could not look away, so they could only retreat. The torrential rain hit so hard that even the leaves rustled. The wind blew past the sharp treetops, causing them to sway left and right as if they would break and fall in the next second. Yi Qian smelled a faint fishy smell in the wind and rain. It was the smell of the black bear. Although it was very faint, it was extremely uncomfortable. "Don't stop, retreat again." The man in front of them had one arm spread open, protecting Yi Qian behind him. At this time, he would definitely not let Yi Qian cooperate with him. He would definitely do his best to protect his girl. Facing such a large and ferocious wild animal, Yi Qian was very calm. Every few steps he retreated, he would stop and wait for Xia Jinyuan. Step by step, they finally retreated until they could no longer see the black bear. "Hurry up and go up. This thing is too aggressive. If you bite it, you will definitely tear it apart." Xia Jinyuan turned around and grabbed Yi Qian's hand. Braving the heavy rain that was so heavy that even the night vision goggles couldn't see the mountain path, they headed towards the sun-facing, densely forested area on the mountain. The two of them had only run a few steps when a loud roar of a wild beast suddenly came from behind them. That roar was not like a tiger's roar that could make all living things crawl. Instead, it was like a huge iron hammer that suddenly smashed into their hearts, causing their hearts to fiercely skip half a beat. Following that was an uncontrollable panic that could not be suppressed. It was the first time Yi Qian had heard such a loud roar. Her heart skipped a beat as she grabbed Xia Jinyuan's hand. "Run faster, Captain Xia. Its voice doesn't sound right. It seems to be frightened." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rumbling sound that sounded like thunder hitting the ground. Then, the ground under his feet began to tremble. "Go!" Xia Jinyuan yelled. He pulled Yi Qian's hands and ran towards the mountain where the trees were densely packed. Behind them, the frightened black bear was also running in their direction. Animals were more sensitive than humans to seek benefits and avoid harm. They were the spirits of the mountains and the true masters of the mountains. They were also the first to know if there was any danger. The special forces of the Snowfield Brigade and the Storm Commandos had all died in their hand. Their bodies were stained with blood and had a strong murderous aura. Even Yi Qian was no exception. Animals were the most sensitive to this kind of murderous aura. They couldn't avoid it, so how could they get close to it? If there was an abnormality, it must be because they felt that the thing that they were more afraid of was coming. This thing was a natural disaster. Chapter 27:11. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, the military received news that a huge mudslide had occurred deep in the mountains at the border of Tibet and Sichuan. Because it was deep in the mountains, there were no signs of human habitation, so no one was affected. However, the 15 Special Forces soldiers who had entered the mountains for training had lost contact with the military. Satellite positioning could not track their tracks, nor could they locate their current location. Today was Sunday, and it was Master Xia's 86th birthday. Master Xia's 3 sons and 1 daughter all rushed back to the old mansion in Beihai to celebrate Master Xia's birthday. Many of the younger generation also came, and there were also 6 great-grandchildren's children. They held candies in their hands and ran and jumped happily in the big yard. Ho Zi, who was talking to the elders, looked outside from time to time, keeping an eye on his wife, Xia Yiwei. There were so many children in the house, and his wife was so pregnant. He was worried that the children would accidentally bump into her. If they did, it would be terrible. Retracting his gaze, Ho Zi saw Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was sitting on his left, take out his cell phone from his pocket. He didn't know what was said on the phone, but he clearly saw Commander-in-Chief Xia, the father of his 6th son, suddenly change his expression. "Okay, I got it. I'll be right there." His voice suddenly became tense, as if it was a straight line that would break at any time. Ho Zi quickly calmed himself down and heard Commander-in-Chief Xia say to him, "Little Ho, take the grandchildren with you to celebrate the old man's birthday. I have something urgent to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. When the old man asks me later, just tell him that I have something to do and have to leave." The old man was invited by his granddaughter, Zhou Yijin, to open the gifts. A few minutes after he left, Commander-in-Chief Xia received an urgent call from the military. Ho Zi was now Family Xia's grandson-in-law, so Commander-in-Chief Xia did not treat him as an outsider. He whispered a few words and got up to leave. To the left of Commander-in-Chief Xia sat the old man's eldest son, Xianghua. Xianghua also left with the old man. 1 seat away was his cousin. He was talking to the old man's 2nd son, Xia Jiazi, about a piece of land in a low voice. Both of them were real estate developers, so the topic of their conversation was business. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who left in a hurry, did not interrupt the 2 of them and left in a hurry. "Huh? Why is my 3rd brother leaving in such a hurry?" Xia Jiazi heard the commotion and looked up to see Commander-in-Chief Xia's back, so he asked Ho Zi, "Xiao Ho, where did your uncle go?" Ho Zi was very respectful to Family Xia's uncles. He was an orphan and had no family. Family Xia knew what he had done in the past, so he accepted him unconditionally because of Xia Yiwei. Ho Zi was very touched by this and sincerely treated Family Xia's elders as his own elders. Hearing this, he said respectfully, "Little uncle, 3rd uncle just received a call and told me that he had to leave because he had something to do. I will explain it to the old man when he comes back. It's most likely about the military." Xia Jiazi frowned slightly, and his hair was a little pale. He smiled at Ho Zi and said, "Come, Xiao Ho, come and talk to me. You are doing well in the southern province. Do you have any plans for the coastal area?" Talking about business was Ho Zi's specialty. Hearing this, he smiled happily and sat down. Outside, Xia Yiwei was talking to her aunt, Xia Sujuan, when she saw Commander-in-Chief Xia walking out in a hurry. With her big belly, she hurriedly asked, "Uncle, where are you going?" "It's time to cut the birthday cake for the old man." Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was striding out, waved his hand when he heard this. He did not stop and said with a smile, "I have something urgent to deal with. You and Xiao Ho accompany the old man." After that, he lowered his head and ordered the guard, "Contact the person in charge in Zhangchuan. I want to talk to him personally." Chapter 27:12. Commander-in-Chief Xia held an important position in the military, and it was common for him to leave home in a hurry. Between the country and his family, men with Family Xia would always choose the country. But what Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't expect was that when he walked out of the courtyard house, he saw a Hongqi car that had just turned off. The driver got out first, and it was an armed policeman. He didn't see Commander-in-Chief Xia yet, and immediately ran to the back door of the car after getting out of the car. Commander-in-Chief Xia heard the armed policeman whisper, "Be careful. Those who could come to Family Xia at this time must be old acquaintances." Commander-in-Chief Xia saw an unexpected old man get out of the car. It turned out to be Old Master Fu. This was the grandfather of his future daughter-in-law. No matter how urgent the matter was, Commander-in-Chief Xia stopped at this moment and immediately walked over. "Sir." The armed policeman heard the voice and saw a general coming over. He immediately saluted while supporting Old Master Fu. Old Master Fu didn't immediately recognize who it was, and because it was dark outside, the light was dim. Old Master Fu heard someone walking towards him, but he didn't see clearly who it was. "Sir, I'm the third son of the old master at home. My name is Xia Xinhui." In the face of this meritorious minister of the country, as a general, Commander-in-Chief Xia also bowed slightly to show his respect. He whispered an order to his guards, and the guards returned to the courtyard house. Commander-in-Chief Xia quickly walked over. At the same time, he naturally helped Old Master Fu from the armed policeman and walked home. Old Master Fu immediately knew who it was after hearing the introduction. He laughed loudly and said in a strong and powerful voice, "You're Ah Yuan's father, right? Good, 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 you've taken over the position of your old master, good. Amazing. Your family Xia is getting stronger and stronger with each generation." Father Fu didn't know that he already had a future son-in-law, but Old Master Fu had long known that he had a future grandson-in-law. This time, he came back not only to celebrate his brother's birthday, but also to let the two families interact. "You flatter me. Be careful of the stairs." Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been praised, took good care of the old man and reminded him to be careful of his feet. Family Xia had always guarded the family Xia's ancestral home, which had a history of more than 100 years. Master Xia and the old madam had gotten married here and had children there. It was also Xia Jinyuan's childhood paradise. After crossing the threshold, the old man looked at the place he had visited decades ago and sighed. "It hasn't changed, it hasn't changed, it hasn't changed at all. It's still the same as it was decades ago. The height of the threshold is the same as before." His wise and peaceful gaze landed on an old pomegranate tree in the corner of the courtyard. Old Master Fu could clearly see that the tree was covered with pomegranates because of the colorful lights that were wrapped around the tree. "This tree is still here. When your father knew that I was in trouble, he plucked half of the pomegranates from the tree and stuffed them all into my wife's bag. In a flash, half the world has passed. Old Fu, you've really become Old Fu now." The same vigorous voice of an old man came from the side. Master Xia, who was wearing a traditional Chinese tang suit with the word longevity on the bottom, walked over from the stairs of the main hall. Master Xia, who had just returned to the banquet, received the news from the guard. How could he still sit and wait? He immediately walked out with his walking stick. When he saw the figure standing in the middle of the courtyard, Master Xia laughed even louder. Old Fu was in his prime years, full of scholarly spirit and full of vigor. In the blink of an eye. "Ha ha ha, you have a walking stick, and I have a walking stick. When we meet again, my hair is white and I can't even walk steadily." Chapter 27:13. When Old Master Fu heard the voice, he knew who was talking to him even before he turned around. The voice was old, but it was still as cheerful and optimistic as he remembered. He turned around and saw an old friend walking towards him. He looked at the walking stick in his old friend's hand and laughed. "Ha ha ha, you and I are about the same. In the blink of an eye, half a century has passed. You are old, I am old, and the group of radishes around you have all started their own families. Old, the young Commander Yun Kuei was also old. Look at his hair, it was all white, just like him. We have been apart for 52 years, Commander Yun Kuei. I can only feel a sense of familiarity from your eyes." Old Master Fu saw his old friend walking over and hurried over to greet him. Old Master Fu was already 70 years old when he retired from his post. If it were not for the Research Institute's insistence on not allowing Old Master Fu to continue working like this, Old Master Fu might have worked until he was 80 years old. He retired at the age of 70 and lived in the capital until he was 75 years old. It was also the country and the research institute's insistence that he returned to Dangue Garden to retire. After returning to the capital, he did not have any leisure time. From time to time, he would attend academic meetings, and sometimes he would go to classes. Later, due to health reasons, Old Master Fu rarely left Dangue Garden and never contacted Master Xia. Master Xia did not know that Old Master Fu had returned to the capital. He only knew that when he was still in the army, Old Master Fu had sent someone to inquire about him. It was not convenient for him to leave his address, so they did not contact each other for decades. Now that they were reunited after 52 years, there was no estrangement. With just a few words, they had already supported each other. Commander-in-Chief Xia needed to hurry back to the military headquarters. Seeing that the two old men had already started chatting, he left quietly with the guards. After walking out of the courtyard, he hurriedly got into the car and rushed back to the military headquarters. In the courtyard house, the two elders stood together under the pomegranate tree. Old Master Xia looked up at the pomegranate tree that was once again full of fruit. His eyes were filled with memories of the past. This tree. I've told you before. It was personally planted by my father when I was born. Now, my father has passed away 51 years ago, and you and I are both old. At the mention of Old Master Xia, who had passed away half a century ago, Old Master Fu sighed. That year, when I was about to leave, the bedridden Old Master Fu told me that the other half of the light is always darkness. Now I am standing in the darkness. Only by constantly rushing forward can I reach the light and realize my dream. He also told me to look for him if I had any difficulties. You gave my old madam a pomegranate, but I don't know when Old Master gave me a gold bar. Surely, it's all thanks to this gold bar that I managed to survive. At that time, the family Xia was still a wealthy family. They could easily take out 10 gold bars, let alone one. Unfortunately, the young Old Master refused. In the end, the Old Master of the Xia family secretly stuffed a gold bar into the Old Master's mouth. Only then did the Old Master of the Xia family survive many difficulties. As they recalled the past, the eyes of the two old men who had experienced many hardships couldn't help but moisten. Look at this tree. It is still full of fruit after half a century. When it is ripe, I will ask someone to pick half of it and send it to you. Master Xia patted the thick trunk of the pomegranate tree. In the future, I will give you half of it every year. When one was old, one would often think of the past. The two old men became good friends in the prime of their lives, but in the blink of an eye, they became white-haired old men. Chapter 27:14. After entering the main hall and taking a seat, Old Master Fu met all the members of the Xia family. Seeing that his old friend's birthday actually required 3 tables to sit down, and that there would be many juniors coming, Old Master Fu felt at ease. He knew everything about family Xia, so he was assured that his granddaughter would marry into the family. Even after 100 years, he would leave with peace of mind. Master Xia looked at his old friend's smiling face and looked at his family members. He couldn't help but sigh when he thought of his old friend's family matters. The Fu family was a little cold. Even though Old Master Fu's granddaughter had been found, it was still cold. The two families were going to be in-laws. Since the Fu family was cold, why not let his old friend move in? As this thought flashed through his mind, Master Xia laughed and said, "It's too cold for you to live alone in Dangue Garden. Why don't you move in with me? At least we can take care of each other. I've kept the room you used to live in. I didn't make it a guest room. The furnishings inside are still the same as before. I even kept the big desk you used to draw on. Every few years, I'll reapply tung oil and it'll be as good as new. After you move in, it'll save you a lot of trouble and you won't have to run around. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That's great. Old Master Fu purposely chose today for two reasons. First, he wanted to catch up with his old friend. Second, he wanted to see if family Xia had any intentions, although old Xia's grandson had mentioned it to him in advance, and the elders in the family were very agreeable to it. They even hoped that the two of them would get married soon. However, he couldn't rest assured if he didn't come over to check on the situation. Now that his body had recovered, he didn't have the lethargic aura of an old man anymore. Therefore, he chose to come uninvited at night. When he heard his old friend mention the two juniors, there was a natural intimacy in his tone and a deep smile in his eyes that were more intimidating than youth. Old Master Fu knew that his old friend really liked his granddaughter. Although the suggestion was good, it was impossible. "Thank you for your kindness. It wasn't easy for me to get used to living in Dangue Garden. If I suddenly move to another place, I'm really not used to it. Ha ha ha, let the two of them make the arrangements. We two old fellows will just watch and won't cause trouble for them." After the old man finished speaking, Master Xia smiled and gestured with his hand. You're still as stubborn as when you were young. Back then, my father wanted to stay with me, but you refused and insisted on leaving. You're already so old, but you're still so stubborn. It's fine if you don't want to stay here. While the two of us are in good health, we should come out more often. Old Fu, although I haven't met your granddaughter yet, in my heart, I have already decided that your granddaughter is our family Xia's daughter-in-law. You can't take advantage of your seniority to stand out and make things worse. Before he could finish, Master Xia laughed loudly and said, "That grandson of mine is the sixth in the family. In my family, we don't care about men or women's generation, we all rank according to age. Sixth brother. Ha ha ha, I dare to say this in front of so many grandchildren in the family. Among the grandchildren, my wife and I dote on him the most. This kid is smart, hard-working, and can control the situation. He has my demeanor in the past. You've also seen it. His character doesn't need me, his grandfather, to praise him. There's really nothing to nitpick about him. He's very thorough in all aspects of his conduct. Both of them are soldiers. I heard from his father that the two of them did the same work in the army. They have a common language and can understand each other. Old Fu, our family Xia and the Fu family are still destined to become in-laws." Chapter 27:15. The old man had a good impression of Xia Jinyuan. When Xiao Xia entered the family, I felt that he looked familiar. Later, when I asked him, I knew that he was really your grandson. None of the men from the family Xia have bad characters. I believe that. But I believe that you also know that my fate with my granddaughter was shallow in the beginning. Now that I've finally found her, old Xia, I have to listen to her and spoil her. Otherwise, my heart will be very empty. I won't interfere with her matters. Everything should be based on her happiness. As her grandfather, I will definitely support her in whatever she wants to do. Old Xia, whether or not we can become in-laws, I can't make the decision. Her father can't make the decision either. It's up to her. As for you, don't worry. I won't stop or interfere. If the two of them can continue to be together, it's their fate and also their blessing. Marriage is predestined. Whether or not they can continue to be together will depend on the two of them in the future. We shouldn't interfere and just watch." With the old man's words, Master Xia felt confident. He smiled and said to his eldest son, Xia Jinyuan's uncle, Xia Angua, who had been accompanying him all this time, "Go and call old San over. Let him toast to the old man." After the toast, it could be considered that they had a good relationship. Xin Hui had an urgent matter to attend to in the military and has been gone for a while. I'll toast to the old man on behalf of Xin Hui. Xia Angua was the leader of the Ministry of National Defense. He was already 66 years old and would retire at the end of the year. Master Xia was already used to Commander-in-Chief Xia leaving midway, but he still explained to the old man, Sometimes, military matters come and go as they wish. I'm already used to it. When the father and son are together, I'll personally bring them to Dangue Garden to visit you. Today, let my eldest son, Angua, toast to you on behalf of the family. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for them. Don't be polite. Back then, my father wanted to adopt you as his son, but you were afraid that you would implicate my family and refused. Ha ha ha, now I'm glad that my father didn't take you as his adopted son. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any marriage between the two of us. Leader Xia had already filled the old man's glass. He was as respectful as Commander-in-Chief Xia in front of the country's officials. Old sir, here's a toast to you. If you need anything in the future, feel free to call any of us. Regardless of whether we can become in-laws in the future, with your relationship with my father, you are our family. With Family Xia's enthusiasm, Old Master Fu was very satisfied with this trip. Before they left, the two elders even agreed to climb Xiangshan Mountain together. At this time, Commander-in-Chief Xia had already spoken to the person in charge of the forest armed police, who was in charge of supplying supplies. He did not ask the forest armed police to immediately enter the mountain to rescue them. Instead, he asked the forest armed police not to send troops for the time being and to wait for news. The Snowfield Brigade was the top special forces in the country, and the soldiers in it were the best soldiers in the special forces. How could something happen to them so easily? There would be certain signs before a mudslide happened, and it was impossible for them, who were familiar with surviving in the wild and had gone through layers of tests, to not have noticed it beforehand. He believed that this kind of thing could be avoided by every special forces soldier. Inform everyone to be on standby. Even helicopters are not allowed to enter the mountain to observe so as to avoid accident. Inform the satellite control center to arrange for the personnel on duty. If there is any new news, report to me immediately. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not panic because of the loss of contact with the entire team. He was the commander-in-chief. If he panicked because of this, he would not have been able to climb to the position he was in tonight. Chapter 27:16. Commander-in-Chief Xia was naturally worried about the safety of all his team members, but he believed in the ability of all the Special Forces soldiers. These soldiers had the courage of wolves, the agility of cheetahs, and the ferocity of tigers. They were the top Special Forces soldiers of our country, experienced hundreds of battles, and tempered by the flames of war to get to where they were today. It could be said that wherever there was danger, they would be there. Commander-in-Chief Xia was confident that they would be fine. Even if something happened, it would be a small matter, such as bruises, falls and other minor injuries that would not hurt the muscles or bones. In fact, the armed police in Zhangchuan Forest had already prepared their helicopters, and the armed police in the mountains were also in place, waiting for the order from the military headquarters to take off immediately. Not going? How can that be? When the political commissar heard the latest order from the regiment commander, he was full of doubts. The mountain collapsed and we lost contact with the personnel. We don't know the number of people inside. If we don't go now, what if they have been waiting for us to rescue them? Human lives are at stake, we can't be careless. How can we not go? The political commissar was very anxious. He still remembered the army soldier who talked to him some time ago. Ding Weizhong, the supreme commander of the armed police in charge of patrolling Zhangchuan Forest, said in a low voice, "It's not something we can decide." The military headquarters called directly. When they said the name, my back immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Military headquarters? Who? You broke out in a cold sweat. Commander-in-Chief Xia called me personally and ordered me to be on standby. There is no need to go immediately. Ding Weizhong took out a pack of cigarettes from the drawer. He did not light one with a lighter, but put it under his nose and sniffed. He was not addicted to smoking, but he used to like smoking a few cigarettes. After being transferred here, as a regiment commander, he had to quit smoking first. The political commissar sitting opposite him did not speak for a long time. After a while, he whispered, "Are you sure? Did you hear it wrong?" "No, it's Commander-in-Chief Xia, the Commander-in-Chief, who gave the order himself." Ding Weizhong sniffed the cigarette fiercely and immediately put it back in the drawer. "Let the detachment be on standby. If anything happens, we can set off immediately." "Okay." The political commissar nodded and frowned. Even the commander-in-chief gave the order himself. "What kind of troop do you think is going into the mountain? Is it really an ordinary troop? Why do I feel like something is wrong?" After he finished speaking, there was silence in the office. Then, Captain Ding sighed and said, "The red header document that our unit received said that it was an ordinary unit. Regardless of whether there is a problem or not, the unit that entered the mountain was just an ordinary unit that had completed the wilderness survival training. Okay, you can rest in the office tonight. I will also go back to the office to rest. Be alert, don't miss any calls." The political commissar did not ask any more questions. No matter what unit it was, it had nothing to do with them. It was still raining heavily outside. After closing the window, they could still hear the pitter-patter of the rain. The political commissar stood up and looked at the dark, rainy night outside. His eyes became a little solemn. The mountain has collapsed in the depths of the mountain. The people outside should have left by now. Make a call to the village outside to ask about the situation. I don't think the weather will recover anytime soon. There's no electricity in the village. The situation should be fine. I'd better make a call just in case. Regiment Commander Ding also looked at the sky outside. It was dark, heavy, and torrential. He felt depressed. All the troops have to be concentrated. Leave only the detachment to enter the mountain. Chapter 27:17. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan ran as fast as they could towards the dense forest. Behind them, a black bear followed them closely for almost an hour. The bear followed them wherever they went. "No, if we keep running like this, Captain Xia, we won't have any energy left. If a natural disaster happens, we won't even have the energy to escape. We have to lure it away." Yi Jian ran until she was panting heavily. Even her arms were trembling from running. "It's following our scent. It's hard to get rid of it." Xia Jinyuan could still keep running, but just as Yi Qian said, if they kept running, they would run out of energy and it would be difficult to escape. The worst thing was that they might encounter a natural disaster. If they ran until they were exhausted, it would be useless no matter how strong they were. Crawling under a rock, Xia Jinyuan looked through his night vision goggles and saw the black bear that had been following them closely. It was roaring in front of them. Its emotions were so violent that it seemed like it would tear anything it touched into pieces. "Qing Miao, climb up. Find the devil and meet up with them. I'll go lure it away now." Xia Jinyuan crawled back from the top of the rock. Drenched, he looked at Yi Qian with a cold expression and suddenly hugged her tightly. "Wait for me to come back." How could Yi Qian agree to let him lure the black bear away alone? Moreover, he couldn't let him go at a time like this. He was the team leader and the commander of the entire training. At the same time, he had to lead the team overseas to participate in the competition. He was also the only Special Forces soldier in the entire team who had gone through the Devil's Week training overseas. He was an outstanding Special Forces soldier that the military had spent countless efforts to cultivate. How could they let him face the current situation? Yi Qian, who was hugged tightly by him, also hugged him tightly. Take care, Captain Xia." Abandoning the pawns to protect the general, this was what she had to do right now. She hugged him tightly again. When Xia Jinyuan let go, Yi Qian grabbed the branch that extended to the rock. Without giving Xia Jinyuan a chance to react, she pulled the branch tight and jumped down from the rock. Hua! Hua hua hua! The leaves trembled and the tree trunk bent. Xia Jinyuan was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he yelled at the figure that was falling down. "Qing Niao!" he roared, and the sound of his roar was like a stone shattering the heavens, shaking the surroundings. "Wait for me, Captain Xia." After jumping down the mountain, Yi Qian did not even look back as she headed for the top of the rock. She was so agile that she did not give Xia Jinyuan a chance to catch up. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the dark night. Xia Jinyuan clenched his fists so tightly that his veins bulged. He looked at the pouring rain and gritted his teeth so hard that his temples bulged. "Qing Niao." He gritted his teeth and spat out these two words. Finally, he headed for the top of the mountain. The rain was so heavy that it was a little scary. It was like pouring water. Li Jinyan raised his head and let the heavy rain wash away the smell of mud in his mouth. "The communication system is broken. Z7 said that it will take a while to fix it." De Xia washed her face in the rain. They had escaped quickly just now. Otherwise, they would have been buried by the collapsed mountain. One washed the mud in his mouth, while the other washed the dirt on his face. Listening to the heavy rain, the atmosphere was so heavy that even breathing was difficult. Every time he took a breath, his heart ached. Chapter 27:18. Li Jinyan pressed down on his earpiece, but there was no sound. During the roll call, only Qing Niao and Q King didn't say anything, which meant that all 13 of them had lost contact with Q King and Qing Niao. "Why don't we go back and take a look? The collapsed area is too big," K7 just said. "No need to go back, it'll be fine." Before De Xiao could finish, Li Jinyan interrupted him sternly. "Just wait here. It'll be fine. Don't forget that Q King is with Qing Niao. That was his sister. How could anything happen to her?" Perhaps it was the first time Li Jinyan had yelled at his comrades because of training. De Xiao was stunned for a moment. After a while, he said, "I didn't say anything would happen to them, I meant to go back and take a look to reassure myself." "Why are you?" Why did he seem a little off? He had lost his cool. "Sorry, I lost my composure." Li Jinyan quickly realized his gaffe. His jaw tightened as he turned his head. His gaze pierced through the darkness as he looked at his comrade. "We can't go back. The rain is too heavy. We can't let our comrade, who has already left the danger zone, take the risk. So, Xia Jinyuan, you better King protect my sister, or else I'll kill you." Li Jinyan grabbed a handful of rainwater and rubbed it on his face. He gritted his teeth, turned around, and walked towards the temporary shelter. The shelter wasn't made of waterproof cloth, it was made of camouflage clothing and branches. The simple shelter that could fit 2 people became Z7 Han Zheng's temporary office. He was in charge of communication, and his expression was tense. The communication device had been hit by a falling rock, and it was too late by the time he went to rescue it. "How much longer do you need?" Li Jinyan asked as soon as he came in. Han Zheng pursed his lips, his eyes dark. "It hit the mainframe, I don't know if it can be fixed, but I'll try my best." If the mainframe couldn't be fixed, they couldn't contact the outside world or receive the location. In this area, even the CPS signal was intermittent. Coupled with the torrential rain, the signal was directly cut off, and there was no way to contact the outside world. Qing Niao and Q King have lost contact. Whether or not you can contact them depends on you, Z7. Li Jinyan's heart sank. He raised his hand and placed it heavily on Han Zheng's shoulder. He didn't move away and said word by word, "I'm counting on you, Z7. The hand on her shoulder felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Han Zheng happened to know the relationship between the Demon King and Qing Niao, as well as the relationship between Q King and Qing Niao. Without looking up, he kept his hands busy and nodded. "Okay, I know. Wait for my news." "Okay." After getting a verbal promise, Li Jinyan withdrew his hand and gave Han Zheng some space. He didn't notice that Han Zheng had already raised his head and was looking at his back with a complicated expression. In the face of natural disasters, the power of humans was especially weak. K7 said that the place where the mountain collapsed was where Q King and Qing Niao appeared. Whether or not they could escape depended on their luck. Staring with bloodshot eyes, Han Zheng retracted his gaze and continued to busy himself with the matter at hand. He was in charge of electronic communications. Now that the entire team had lost contact with the outside world, someone had to be responsible for re-establishing communications. This was his responsibility, and it was something he had to do. Usually they wouldn't be that worried if they lost contact, but there was a natural disaster tonight, and the two of them happened to be at the site of the collapse. Even the strong-willed Special Forces soldiers were worried. Chapter 27:19. No one was in the mood to chat. They used tree branches to build a shelter from the rain for their combat uniforms. They took out a wet mat from their backpacks and laid it on the ground. They took off their military boots and poured the rainwater out of them. They didn't even change their wet socks. They just wrung them dry and put them back on. Then, they put on their military boots again. Everyone did their work in silence. No one mentioned the missing Q King and Qing Niao. It was as if the two were still in the team and there was no need to worry too much. While they were waiting, the ground shook violently again. Everyone rushed out of the shelter and stood in the heavy rain. Their eyes were tense as they looked ahead fiercely. The collapsed corner of the mountain had collapsed for the second time. Motherf ****. Someone raised his hand and shook the leaves around him fiercely. He gritted his teeth and spat out 2 words. There was no news at all, and the second collapse happened. Li Jinyan's eyes were so red that it looked like blood was going to burst out. His hand was tightly gripping a branch of a shrub. He wrapped it around his palm a few times and pulled it tightly until the branch was wrapped around his entire palm. It looked like it was going to cut into his flesh. Rest here. After a long while, he gave the order in a hoarse voice. His cold voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Qing Niao, his sister. Don't let me down. Don't let Uncle be sad. Don't let Grandpa be sad. Everyone clenched their fists. Everyone wanted to go over and rescue them. However, no one could rescue them at a time like this. Devil, let me go over. V8 growled. I can't King rest here. Let me go over. My captain and my comrades are probably waiting for us to go over. Li Jinyan turned his head fiercely. He stared fiercely at V8 and pointed at his heart. I want to go over more. King want to go over more. Your captain, your comrades, they are also my comrades. But don't forget who we are. Who we are. We are special forces that the country spent a lot of effort to cultivate. We are the top special forces that the country has high hopes for. We are generation after generation of top special forces. The responsibilities we bear are not meant to be swayed by emotions. The red-eyed V8's chest heaved up and down as if there were waves crashing against the shore in his chest. The rainwater flowed into his eyes, making them even redder and brighter. Who are we? Are we just going to watch our comrades get into trouble? If it was an ordinary citizen who was in trouble tonight, would we still be able to stand by and watch? Is it because of who we are that we can only wait even though we know that our comrades are in danger? He did not yell, but every word that came out of his mouth was filled with even more ferocity than a roar, because every word was filled with an extremely deep sorrow. Fight for the country, fight for the people. If it was an ordinary citizen, we would have done it, because you are a soldier and you are fighting for the people. Li Jinyan shut his eyes tightly and answered V8 with a heavy voice. And our comrades, they are soldiers. They know what sacrifice is, what is a loss to the country. If something really happened, it would only be the two of them. However, if another comrade returned, it was possible that another comrade would be in trouble. This was what it meant to reduce the rate of sacrifice. This was it. This was a cruel fact that they had to face as soldiers. An unchangeable fact that they had to accept. Chapter 27:20. G3 punched the tree beside him with all his might. Blood flowed out from the back of his hand. After a while, he suppressed the impulse in his heart and said to V8, Q King once said that if he's not around, everyone must listen to the devil's orders. V8, this is an order. A soldier's duty is to obey orders. The entire scene was dead silent. The only sound that could be heard was the short and rapid breaths of every Special Forces soldier. They all understood, they all understood. The devil wasn't wrong. V8 wasn't wrong either. They weren't wrong. One chose the bigger picture, the other chose to share the joys and sorrows. If the devil wasn't the captain, he would definitely choose to share the joys and sorrows. But he was a captain of the Special Forces, and a commander. As a commander, he had to consider the bigger picture. If he let his comrades take risks at this time, it would be a mistake for him to not understand the bigger picture, disregard the lives of his comrades, and make the wrong decision. He also wanted to find Q King and Qin Miao, but he had to consider the bigger picture. 7 people in this group would represent the country to participate in the competition overseas and secretly learn from the top Special Forces soldiers of each country. If something happened to anyone else, how would he explain it to the country? Time ticked by and the stalemate lasted for 5 minutes. V8 was the first to turn around, then bent down and entered the low shelter. Let's rest maybe. Maybe the missing comrade will come back soon. Before he could finish his sentence, they heard a rustling sound that was clearly different from the sound of rain hitting leaves. Other than V8, who had already entered the shelter, everyone's eyes lit up as they looked in the direction of the rustling sound. Finally, they saw a shadow moving in the green world. The Snowfield Brigade soldiers were the first to recognize the shadow. G3 yelled towards the leaves 3 meters away from them, Captain. Xia Jinyuan, who was walking in the forest, was waving the leaves that were blocking his path. He paused when he heard the voice. His comrades were in front of him, but he didn't feel the joy of reuniting after losing contact for nearly 3 hours. Soon, he walked in front of his comrades. Even though they were all wearing night vision goggles, he knew that they were looking behind him, waiting for Qin Miao's back to appear. Qin Miao, protect me and lure away the black bear chasing us. I lost contact with her. These few words seemed to have exhausted all of Xia Jinyuan's strength. Everyone's pupils contracted fiercely, deep in their eyes were extremely shocked. She told me to sacrifice the soldier to save the commander, Xia Jinyuan said again. Hearing his words, the Special Forces soldiers once again clenched their fists. Qin, a female soldier who wasn't afraid of sacrifice and knew the big picture at all times. Sacrifice the soldier to save the commander. She knew King Q's role in the team too well. She knew how much the military had high hopes for King Q, and she knew how much the Shui Yu team needed King Q's leadership. So, she of the danger. Q King, come here. Li Jinyan spoke. The corners of his mouth were pressed very, very low. His handsome face was really like a pile of ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. His cold gaze swept out, and even the breath he exhaled carried an eerie chill. Although his expression was cold, there was a cluster of flames in his eyes, as if he wanted to burn everything in front of him. Xia Jinyuan, who was covered in mud, didn't say a word and left with Li Jinyan. He knew why Li Jinyan asked him to go alone. He knew. Chapter 27:21. Both of them left with a murderous aura. No matter how heavy the rain was, it couldn't wash away their murderous aura. Big Shark and the others wanted to follow them. They were worried that the 2 captains would have a conflict. They didn't understand. Why was the Demon King so angry when Qin Miao from the Snowfield Brigade didn't come back? That expression, it was as if he wanted to swallow Q King alive. Something wasn't right, and it wasn't normal. It was as if there was something they didn't know. Only the Demon King and Q King knew. Don't go. The special forces from the Snowfield Brigade led by G3 blocked Big Shark and the others. We can't interfere with this. Let them solve it themselves. Don't worry, Big Shark. They are captains. They know what they are doing. But Big Shark and the others were worried because they had never seen the Demon King lose his composure. No buts. Trust us. We can guarantee that the Demon King will be fine. But we can't guarantee that Q King will be fine. Big Shark rubbed his face and frowned at G3. This is the first time we have seen the Demon King lose control. We are worried that the Demon King will do something to Q King. F***CK. There was really no way to guarantee that. G3 looked at K7 and the others. Everyone looked at each other. What was going to happen later? They couldn't guarantee that they would be fine. The sound of leaves rustling could be heard from the front. Everyone's face tensed up. They all knew that this sound was the sound of fighting. It sounds fierce. Are we really not going to look? Big Shark couldn't help but gulp. The heavy rain couldn't cover the sound of fighting. How fierce and fierce was this? Qing Miao is missing. Why is our Demon King so anxious? The big merman's heart was beating like a drum, but he tightened the corners of his mouth. When he heard the Devil King's deep roar from the front, the big merman's pupils suddenly shrunk, as if he had just discovered a great secret. He exclaimed, "Is the Devil King really dating Qing Miao? Is the Demon King angry because Q King didn't bring back Qing Miao?" G3 and the others, who knew what was going on, were so shocked by the big mermaid's guesses that their mouths twitched. What was he guessing? The Demon King and Qing Miao were brother and sister. How could he make the Demon King and Qing Miao a couple? Meanwhile, the T6 combatant had a strange look on his face. There was no smoke without fire. He still remembered that Q King had hurried over to the naval base in the south during the summer break last year. Could it be that the Demon King revealed his interest in Qing Miao in front of his comrades of the Storm Commandos before he knew that she was his sister? Thinking of this, the T6 combatant got goosebumps from his own guess. He must have been overthinking things. G3 patted the big mermaid on the shoulder and said in a serious tone, "That's not true. The Demon King does like Qing Miao, but it's not the love between a man and a woman like you think. There are other ties between the Demon King and Qing Miao. Blood ties could also be considered ties, right? There were other ties?" The members of the Storm Commandos were even more confused and confused. Now was not the time to think about other things. It was better to think about, when were they going to end their fight? This was the first time they had seen the Demon King lose his composure. They were all worried that something would happen to Q King. The Snowfield Brigade members were also worried about whether something would happen to Xia Jinyuan. However, no one went over to persuade him and just waited where they were. When Q King left just now, he had used his eyes to tell them not to follow him. Then they would just have to wait. Chapter 27-22. No matter how angry the Demon King was, as the captain, he knew his limits. Moreover, Q King had clearly told the Demon King that Qing Miao did what she did because she wanted to sacrifice herself to protect the commander. Qing Miao knew how important Q King was, so she would rather leave the danger to herself and protect Q King. If it were any of their comrades, they would have made the same choice as Qing Miao. Li Jinyan naturally understood, but understanding was one thing, and being able to accept it was another. He punched Xia Jinyuan in the abdomen. With bloodshot eyes, he grabbed Xia Jinyuan's collar and growled, "Xia Jinyuan, is this how you King take care of my sister? You took care of her until she went missing?" This time, Xia Jinyuan didn't fight back. He didn't have the right to fight back. However, he didn't like what Li Jinyan said. He glared at him and growled, "She didn't go missing. She didn't go missing. I'm here, you're here, and she still has family here. She finally found her family, so she won't throw them away. Li Jinyan, she didn't go missing. Xia Jinyuan almost shouted the last sentence. He could hit him or scold him, but he definitely couldn't say that Qing Niao went missing. Absolutely not. You still know that she just found her family. How dare you let her face danger alone? Li Jinyan, who had never lost his composure, glared at Xia Jinyuan as if he wanted to burn him to ashes. How could you let her take the risk alone? How could you do this? So what if black bears are protected animals? You can shoot at any time if your life is in danger. You can shoot at any time. According to Article 341 of our country's criminal law, anyone who illegally hunts or kills precious or endangered wildlife under state protection, or illegally purchases, transports, or sells precious or endangered wildlife under state protection or its products shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not more than 5 years or criminal detention, and shall also be fined. If the circumstances are serious, they shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not less than 5 years and not more than 10 years, and shall also be fined. If the circumstances are especially serious, they shall be sentenced to imprisonment of not less than 10 years, and shall also be fined or have their property confiscated. Xia Jinyuan's voice was hoarse as he slowly explained the animal protection regulations in the criminal law. Demon King Qing Niao went to stall the black bear alone. My heart ached more than yours. She needed a reason to kill the bear. When her life was in danger, she could kill the bear. Qing Niao was an emergency, so she didn't have to bear legal responsibility. But we only have blanks in our hands. They were all blanks. Shoot? I want to shoot. I want to shoot. As he spoke, Xia Jinyuan was also shouting. One was Yi Qian's brother, and the other was Yi Qian's beloved man. Both of them loved Yi Qian deeply, and would use their lives to protect Yi Qian. Li Jinyan knew very well that Yi Qian had made the right choice, but he couldn't accept the reality in front of him. When he heard the words, blanks, Li Jinyan's anger rose another level, and the panic in his heart soared in a straight line. Xia Jinyuan didn't fight back, and only blocked with his hands. In fact, he also wanted to fight, to vent the panic in his heart. They didn't fight for long. After about 10 minutes, Li Jinyan withdrew his fist, leaned against a tree, and said to Xia Jinyuan, who didn't fight back, "You found my sister. You don't know how many lifetimes of good fortune you've accumulated to find my sister." Most women subconsciously look for their boyfriends to avoid danger when they're in danger, but my sister? She even rushed out to protect you. Xia Jinyuan, my sister is such a good girl. I'm really unwilling to let you win her heart and marry her. Chapter 27-23. Li Jinyan did not say these words out of anger, nor out of impulse, but because he truly believed so. The rain was so heavy that their faces were completely blurred, and they could no longer see each other's facial features clearly. The only thing they could feel was that each other's aura was extremely heavy. Li Jinyan, who rarely spoke at length, fixed his gaze on Xia Jinyuan, whose aura was dark and gloomy. His voice sounded as if he had exhausted all his strength and was full of fatigue. She was so good that she was willing to sacrifice her own life to protect you. Xia Jinyuan, how could you be so lucky? My uncle just found my sister, and my grandfather just had hope. Our family hasn't truly reunited yet, and we haven't brought my sister to my grandmother's grave to offer incense. Neither have we gone to my mother's grave to offer incense. Xia Jinyuan, if something happened to my sister, would you be able to live in peace for the rest of your life? She did make the right choice. You are the commander and captain of the Snowfield Brigade, and you are going to lead this Special Forces team to another peak. The country spent so much effort to cultivate you, and no one wants anything to happen to you. I feel the same way. And so does my sister. It's precisely because she made the right choice that my heart aches for her. I feel sorry for my sister, and I feel sorry for her for being so foolish and fearless. Xia Jinyuan listened quietly. Because of Li Jinyan's words, his eyes were as deep as the ocean, and the deepest part of his eyes was raging with a violent storm. She's so good, so fearless, and she can't bear to leave all of us. So I believe that Qing Niao will be fine. She won't get into trouble so easily. Now that you've hit and scolded her, it's time to go back and rest. Xia Jinyuan, whose aura was dark and gloomy, took a deep breath of the damp air mixed with rainwater. He held his aching abdomen and walked step by step toward the temporary camp for the night. When are you going to find my sister? Li Jinyan's hoarse voice came from behind him. Here, there is no sister, no lover, Demon King, there is only Qing Niao. Xia Jinyuan stopped in his tracks. Without turning around, he replied in a deep voice. The moment Qing Niao made her choice, she was protecting me as a soldier. So, there's only Qing Niao here, and I'm the captain of the Snowfield Brigade. I'm the person she's protecting with her life. Demon King, I will go back to find my comrade in arms. I will go back to find Qing Niao. But not now. She had gone through all the dangers just to get him out of danger. If he went back, he would only disappoint her and waste her effort. Demon King, do you know why Qing Niao chose me? Li Jinyan's eyes turned cold at his words, and he clenched his fists. Why? We both understand each other. We both know the intentions behind each other's actions. We both cherish each other's decisions and understand the meaning behind each other's decisions. Demon King, when Qing Niao was 14 years old, her figure was already in my heart. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 7 years. I've known her for 7 years, accompanied her for 7 years, and understood her for 7 years. I know Qing Niao better than your uncle. I want to go back to find her more than anyone else. Every minute I stay here is torture, but I understand her. It's precisely because I understand and know that I can't go back now. Chapter 27-24. Xia Jinyuan didn't stay in the same spot. He lifted his leg and walked away with steady and powerful steps, leaving Li Jinyan speechless for a long time. You might say that I'm cold and callous, or that I don't deserve to be Qing Niao's boyfriend, but I don't care. I only care about how she sees me, thinks of me, and treats me. What other people think has nothing to do with me. Li Jinyan didn't move. He kept leaning against the rough trunk of the tree. Even though Xia Jinyuan's back was out of his sight, he continued to stare at the spot where Xia Jinyuan's back had disappeared. After some time, Li Jinyan's tall body moved. His thin, sharp lips were pursed into a straight line. He didn't understand the relationship between his sister and Xia Jinyuan, but Xia Jinyuan said that he had known his sister for 7 years. He knew his sister better than their family. This was an indisputable fact. Why did he hit him? The reason was simple. He had substituted Xia Jinyuan's other identity into the training. Xia Jinyuan was his sister's boyfriend. At the same time, he was also the leader of a special forces team. His safety was crucial. His sister. No, Qing Niao had made the best choice. As a team leader, he should be cheering for such a soldier. His sister had made such a choice because she knew her own identity. She was very clear about the difference between her identity in training and her real life. She was much more clear-headed than her brother. Q King wasn't wrong. His comrades had risked their lives to protect him. How could he ignore their efforts and return immediately? It was said that women were more emotional than men, but Qing Niao didn't seem emotional at all. She was only calm. Qing Niao, we are all waiting for your return. Please come back safely. Devil Li Jinyan didn't stay in the dark forest alone. He walked out step by step with determination. He had to trust Qing Niao like Q King. He had to trust that she could do it. He had to trust that she would come back. Her comrades, lover, and family were all waiting for her. How could she not come back? Yi Qian, who was covered in mud, had one hand on the tree trunk and the other on her knees. She bent over and gasped for breath. Her hands were trembling, her lips were trembling. Her entire body was trembling. He was so tired from running that his entire body was exhausted. His legs felt like they were filled with lead, and he didn't even have the strength to lift his feet and take half a step. No, she had to rest for a while. She had to rest for a while. Yi Qian, who had shot the black bear at close range with a blank bullet, slid down the tree slowly and sat down on the ground. As soon as she sat down, she immediately crawled on all fours towards the darkness in front of her. That black mass was none other than the black bear that Yi Qian had taken out at close range with a blank bullet. The danger range of a blank bullet was within a range of 5 meters, but she was within a range of 3 meters. She continuously fired at the black bear's head. In the end, the black bear was knocked down, and she was completely drained of energy. "Big guy, you shouldn't have chased after us soldiers. We knew that you were a protected animal, so Captain Xia and I gave in to you the whole way. But you just had to be so persistent." Yi Qian climbed to the black bear's position. She boldly patted the black bear's strong body, then curled up into the black bear's belly. She planned to rest for a while and gather her strength before coming back up. Who knew that she would end up resting for a few hours? Chapter 27-25. The black bear was very large. Although it smelled strongly, its belly was soft and warm. Yi Qian, who was sleeping on it, closed her eyes and immediately opened them. She raised her hand to look at her watch. The dim blue light showed the time. It was already past 3 in the morning. No wonder she was so tired that her legs were trembling. She had been dealing with the black bear for almost 3 hours. She had a chance to finish off the black bear in 2 hours. She had even loaded a blank cartridge. But in the end she saw a tree suddenly tilt down. Her eyes saw it, and her body reacted by grabbing her rifle and running. She was only 4 meters away from the black bear. When she ran, the black bear roared and chased after her. She could even smell the unpleasant smell of the black bear in the damp air. She was worried that the area would collapse, so she didn't set up another ambush. When she ran to the mountainous area where they had previously trained, she was familiar with the terrain and had set up a second ambush. 3 hours. The black bear chased her for 3 hours, and she ran for 3 hours. Yi Qian took off her helmet and kissed the emblem on it. She smiled and said softly, "Captain Xia, you should be able to find me, right?" After saying that softly, Yi Qian hugged her helmet and fell into a deep sleep in less than 3 minutes. She needed to recover her energy and adjust her body's condition to complete the training that was less than a week away. Yi Qian could sleep in the mountains, and she slept very soundly. She wasn't afraid of any poisonous snakes, insects, or rats at all. It didn't matter if the rain was heavy. When a person was tired, the taut string in their heart would relax. No matter how harsh the environment was, Yi Qian could still fall asleep. Besides, Yi Qian had already tried sleeping alone in the deep mountains and forests. She even spent the spring festival alone in the deep mountains and forests. To be able to withstand the test and endure loneliness, Yi Qian had to get used to and accept it. She had to treat it as a necessary part of her military career. In the middle of the night, the torrential rain began to fall, and the sound of the raindrops hitting the leaves became much softer. Han Zheng, who was nestled in the shelter, suddenly shouted when his comrades were half asleep, "Okay. The communication is done." Xia Jinyuan, who was sleeping closest to him with his legs curled up, forgot that he was nestled in the simple shelter he built with his camouflage uniform. When he heard Han Zheng's shout of joy, he immediately jumped up and slammed his forehead into the tree trunks supporting his sleeves. There was a loud crash, and the trunks supporting his camouflage uniform were all overturned. The shelter, which could still be used to shelter him from the rain, was tilted askew and lost its function. Xia Jinyuan grabbed the camouflage uniform that was blocking his way and pulled it with force. The camouflage uniform was pulled away by him and hung loosely on the leaves. He took a step forward and walked to Han Zheng's side. Turning on the light, he lowered his head, squatted down, and used the light to shine on Han Zheng's face, who was re-establishing communication. Then, he glanced at Han Zheng's military portable notebook. Seeing the strings of codes on it, he said in a deep voice, "How long will it take to completely restore communication? Give me 5 minutes. I just found out that we've lost contact with the satellite. If the military knows about our situation, they're probably waiting for our letter." Han Zheng's slender fingers tapped on the keyboard. His speed was very fast, so fast that no one could see clearly how he typed out string after string of codes. Chapter 27-26. Xia Jinyuan looked at the time and was about to get up when Li Jinyan, who was camping a little further away, walked over. Li Jinyan walked over. His tall figure blended into the night. Shrouded in a cold aura, he walked straight to Xia Jinyuan with a solemn and dignified feeling that only existed in the night. "I just heard Z7 say that the communication channel is fixed, but I can't get into the channel to contact Qing Niao." His voice was so hoarse that Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but frown. He said that the communication device has been fixed and is now re-establishing communication. "We have also lost contact with the military and are re-establishing communication with both sides." He got up and said, "You don't seem to be doing well. My tonsils are on fire and I have a low fever. I took some medicine." Li Jinyan squatted down as he spoke. He wanted to go in and check on the situation, but when he saw the pile of communication equipment and Z7, it was already very crowded, so he followed Xia Jinyuan and squatted outside. "Should I contact the military first or Qing Niao first? Synchronize the communication. I have 2 terminals, so there won't be any conflict." Z7 Han Zheng replied. Then, a horizontal bar appeared on the laptop screen that represented the progress of the connection. As the green bar grew larger, Han Zheng stared at the screen and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Communication was successfully established. Reporting. Latest news from Tibet. The technical soldier in the duty room immediately reported the latest news they received. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been in the military office all this time, hung up the phone and leaned back in his office chair. After a while, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Finally, there was news. Then, Commander-in-Chief Xia directly called Major General Yang. "Confirm the condition of all of them and whether any of them are injured. There are still 10 days until July 26. None of them can have any accidents." Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't keep an eye on the training every day, nor could he intervene all the time. He would only appear if there was a serious situation. After all, Major General Yang was the main person in charge of the Snowfield Brigade. Major General Yang, who also stayed in the office overnight, had a serious expression on his face as he replied to Commander-in-Chief Xia. "Other than Qing Niao, who didn't return to the team, the rest of the team members are safe and sound." Qing Niao didn't return to the team. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly became serious. "What's going on? Why is Qing Niao the only one who didn't return to the team?" Shi and Q were to observe the battle tonight. To follow K7, they encountered the bear, and then the mountain collapsed. The bear instinctively ran into the dense forest area. Qing and Q King and Qing chose the same direction and to the same direction. And the mountain collapse caused the bear to become irritable. Q King is someone who has climbed over piles of corpses. He has a murderous aura and a vicious aura. The irritable bear targeted Q King. Qing Niao sacrificed herself to protect her commander. When Q King suggested that he go alone to lure the bear away, she directly jumped down from the rock to lure the bear away. The blood on her hands wasn't as heavy as Q King's, but in order to lure away the danger, she might have directly charged at the bear. She purposely made the bear think that she was attacking it. Major General Yang, who already knew the details, said each word with a heavy heart. He was moved by Qing Niao's understanding, and was even more moved by Qing Niao's big picture. This female soldier was really full of surprises. Commander-in-Chief Xia's face was a little gloomy. He, who was already an impressive military figure, was now sitting alone in the office, making the space seem cramped. Chapter 27:27. It's now 3:20 in the morning. Did they say when they're going to look for Qing Niao? Commander-in-Chief Xia's voice was sharp. Tell them that they must find Qing Niao. I've already given the order. As soon as the rain stops and the sun comes up, tell them to look for Qing Niao immediately. Major General Yang nodded. Qing Niao was the only female soldier in the Snowfield Brigade. He had also watched her walk step by step. If something happened to her, it would not only be a loss to the country, but it would also be a pain in everyone's heart. In the mountains at the border of Tibet and Sichuan, Xia Jinyuan spread out a waterproof military map. This was a map with landforms and topography. He opened the coordinates that he had set for himself before and quickly found the exact location on the map where he and Yi Jian had separated. This is the place where Qing Niao and I were separated. The difference is no more than 2 meters. If we head up from here, it will be the place where we expected to arrive. It's less than 400 meters away from our current campsite. The landslide is in this area. His slender finger that had been soaked in the rain pointed to a spot on the map and then to another more detailed terrain map. This area is 4 kilometers away from where Qing Niao and I were separated. Therefore, Qing Niao will not go there. Knowing that it was dangerous, no one would go there. Then, Xia Jinyuan pointed to another area. Qing Niao's location is quite accurate. It's 8 kilometers from where we were separated to where we were previously trained. This area is also densely forested and is far away from the landslide. Therefore, search this area. He spoke with certainty, as if he could already see Yi Qian waiting for him at the place where they had once trained together. The water ghosts of the storm commandos looked at each other. There was uncertainty in each other's eyes. Why are you so sure? Go from where you and Qing Niao were separated to here. Li Jinyan pointed at the terrain map. His finger that had also been soaked in the rain until it was white and wrinkled stopped at a spot. It's closer to here, but it's also further away from the landslide. The Demon King asked the question that was on the minds of all the water ghosts. Xia Jinyuan looked up and fixed his gaze on Li Jinyan. Because she's a Qing Niao and I'm her captain. Even if this place is close, Qing Niao won't choose it. She will walk the path that we walk together and stand at a place where I can easily find her and wait for me. So, no matter how close this place is, it is not her choice. This answer. If it weren't for the fact that Qing Niao had yet to return, every single bachelor present would have been hurt in their hearts. I believe in our captain's judgment. We've been on several missions with Qing Niao. One of them is in the east and the other is in the west. They'll meet again eventually. I also believe that, Demon King. There must be a Qing Niao here. We can't delay any longer. We'll have to leave when the sun rises. The comrades of the Snowfield Brigade spoke up for their captain. Xia Jinyuan raised his hand to stop his comrade from speaking. Devil, I trust my intuition. She must be waiting for me here. His little fox was very smart, very stubborn, and very cautious. She knew very well that she would lose contact with him. She also knew that he, who had protected her with his own life, would definitely look for her. Considering all these factors, he was very sure that his little fox must be in this area. Okay. Li Jinyan, who had been watching him for a long time, nodded. There was no reason not to trust a man who had known his little sister for 7 years, accompanied her for 7 years, and waited for her to grow up. Chapter 27:28. Since the Devil King nodded, the other water ghosts also agreed. Then, Xia Jinyuan divided the search area. What I'm most worried about now is whether Qing Niao was injured when she lured the black bear away, especially her legs. If her legs were injured, she would choose to shoot the black bear with blank bullets at close range. So, this is our main search route. Young Sparrowhawk. Here. Young Sparrowhawk, who was a scout, responded. Xia Jinyuan looked up at him. You're in charge of searching for details. Pay attention to the footprints. Roger. After receiving his comrade's reply, Xia Jinyuan said to everyone, check if the surrounding branches have been broken or if there are any traces of being stepped on. There's one more thing to mention. Qing Niao lured the black bear away at night, which means that she might have taken a detour. Although the forest where we train is dense, if she takes a detour, all of us will have to follow her footsteps and waste time. Let's look for Qing Niao's footsteps first. If she ran in the direction I speculated, everyone can continue to move forward together. If we split up... Xia Jinyuan paused for a moment, then turned to Li Jinyan and said, You're in charge of following Yi Qian's footsteps, and I'll lead a team to speculate the location. Li Jinyan nodded in agreement. It was a safe and reliable method. After the detailed arrangements were completed, all that was left was to wait for dawn. The campsite needed to be tidied up. They removed the camouflage that was temporarily used to block the rain from the branches and put away the anti-moisture mat. Then, they cleaned up the nearby traces one by one. All the team members did their work in an orderly manner while waiting for dawn. Every minute and every second of waiting for dawn was torture. After tidying up, they did not go back to sleep. Instead, they sat on the wet ground with their backs against each other and closed their eyes to rest. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still dark. They could take a short break before setting off again. At 4:50 a.m., a trail of smoke finally appeared at the end of the sky. The faint morning light enveloped the entire land. Let's go. As Xia Jinyuan's cold voice rang out, everyone got ready to set off. They headed to the area designated by Xia Jinyuan to look for Yi Qian, who had lost contact with them. Although the rain in the mountains had stopped, the rain-soaked leaves attracted another heavy rain. To the Special Forces soldiers who were walking in the forest, they were already drenched anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to be drenched again. The search area was a little large, so everyone had to look at their feet clearly. Once they found that the soil was loose, they would immediately retreat. Therefore, every step they took was especially cautious to prevent any accidents from happening. There are no footprints. Qing Niao didn't walk in this area. I don't have it here. No, they didn't miss any of the routes leading to their campsite. They were afraid that Qing Niao would turn back and look for them. Along the way, they kept an eye out for footprints. There was nothing wrong with searching carefully. Keep going. Li Jinyan, who was walking in front, raised his voice. His cold voice reached everyone's ears, and it had the effect of raising everyone's spirits. If there were no footprints, they would immediately continue on their way. There was no need to waste time. Xia Jinyuan looked at the sky, which had already turned bright. The darkness in his eyes seemed to have absorbed the darkness of the night into his eyes. It was so dark that it seemed to have lost its luster. There was only endless darkness in his eyes, which made people's hearts jump. Qing Niao will be fine. Don't worry. G3, who was walking beside him, said softly, although Qing Niao is a female soldier, she is very cautious. She knows when to be ruthless, so she will definitely be ruthless. Chapter 27-29. G3 had worked with Yi Qian several times, so he knew a little about Yi Qian. She's ruthless, but she doesn't rely on her ruthlessness. She knows how to protect herself, and she knows how to plan her escape route. Q King, your girl is not just ordinarily powerful. She's so powerful that all of our comrades admire her. With the addition of Qing Niao to the Snowfield Brigade, the atmosphere in the team was no longer dull, and the training was no longer boring. How could something happen to such a good comrade? Absolutely nothing would happen to her. Xia Jinyuan's thin lips were pursed tightly. Everyone's communication has been restored. We even had a satellite video call with Major General Yang. Only Qing Niao. So far, there's no news from her side. I'm worried that she might be injured. It was hard to guarantee whether she was injured or not. G3 was speechless. After a while, he patted Xia Jinyuan's shoulder, and his footsteps were heavy. The team members who walked through the forest had heavy hearts. No one spoke. Qing Niao didn't return to the team, so they didn't even have the mood to speak. An hour later, they passed by the rock where Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan had separated last night. After walking down a few hundred meters, they could clearly see a row of bear paw print. The team members' eyes lit up when they saw the bear paw print. Let's go. Follow the footprints. Sparrowhawk, who was in charge of searching for details, waved his arm. Then, like a king in the mountains, he rushed down. His comrades followed closely behind. The footsteps came and went, but they were all heading towards the area Xia Jinyuan had predicted. Q King's prediction was right. I really admire him. Behind them, Big Shark and the other water demons turned off their communication channels and whispered to each other. Their journey was really right. Qing Niao and the others are comrades in the same brigade after all. They already have a tacit understanding with each other. If it were the devil, it would be the same. Just like last time, when a few recruits went underwater and lost contact, we were all anxious. He was the only one who divided the underwater area and led us directly to the deserted island to search. It's not easy to be a team leader. They will always know more than us. Otherwise, they won't be able to convince the others. Before the water ghosts could finish their conversation, the voices of their comrades from the Snowfield Brigade came from their earpieces. There's a small area in front of us. Come over quickly. A piece of news that made all the water ghosts' expressions change came over. How could they still communicate with each other? They immediately turned on their earpieces and ran forward with their backpack. Take a detour from here. Be careful. The special forces of the Snowfield Brigade had already started to descend. Li Jinyan and Xia Jinyuan were at the front of the group. The two of them were practically sliding down with their buttock. From their backs and movements, it was clear that the collapse had made the two of them anxious. Young Sparrowhawk also slid down. As he slid down, he raised his head and looked at the collapsed area, which was about 10 square meters in size. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan had already started searching. They needed to determine whether Yi Qian was buried in the collapsed area by the footsteps nearby. This was something that no one could guarantee. They had to search first before making a judgment. There are footprints here. Xia Jinyuan's voice broke the silence. As his voice fell, the air became lively, and the hostility on the special forces' faces was swept away. The comrades who were in charge of the carpet search all ran towards him. Even if the branches hit their faces, it didn't stop them from running over. Chapter 27:30. Huff, huff, huff. His comrades, who were breathing heavily, gathered around Yanzi, who had discovered the situation. They all looked at the ground. Xia Jinyuan, who was kneeling on the ground, held a slotted dagger in his hand and gently pried the shards away. A very clear bear paw print appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Qing Niao must have been running in front, and the black bear was chasing after her. Now that there was a bear paw print, Qing Niao's footprints could be found. Li Jinyan squatted on a protruding rock and looked at the collapsed area. From here, he could see the location of the black bear's footprint. Thinking about Yi Qian's height, he set his gaze on a spot. He got up, walked a few steps, and squatted down again. His hands parted the thick grass, leaving two very clear footprints on the ground. Qing Niao is fine. His fingers gently pressed on the footprint. His cold, handsome face had a faint, breezy smile. She tried to ambush the black bear here, and was even prepared to shoot. Q King, we can move now. Up until now, his sister was safe and sound. Xia Jinyuan had already walked over. After hearing Li Jinyan's last sentence, he also squatted down and pressed on the footprints with his fingers. The two of them looked up at each other, a smile in their deep, unfathomable eyes. This is a watershed. Qing Niao could have gone in the direction of her original training, or she could have gone around the black bear because she didn't pay attention to the direction and deviated. At this point, even Xia Jinyuan's tone was much calmer. Once the direction deviates, split into 2 teams and look for Qing Niao. Roger! Roger! The 14 of them replied in unison. Once again, they searched for Yi Qian's footprints. Yi Jian, who had slept until 5:30, opened her eyes. It was no longer pitch black in front of her eyes. Instead, she saw a bright light. She saw crisp green trees that were still wet from the rain, the dark sky, and a wild chicken courageously running through the bushes, clucking all the way. The black bear's body temperature had completely cooled down. Only the spot where she slept still had a trace of warmth. Yi Jian got up and stretched her stiff neck. Looking at the black bear again, she massaged her temples as she felt a headache coming on. In the report, she had to explain why she killed this national protected animal. Her comrades in the team had headaches writing reports, and so did she. It would be a pity to let the black bear rot until only its skeleton. She needed the forest police to transport it out. After thinking about how to deal with the black bear, Yi Jian spread out the map and habitually took out the GPS to locate it. As soon as she took it out, it was full of mud and water. Even so, at least it could give her location. As for the earpiece, it was already broken. She had forgotten that she couldn't contact the team. Putting away the GPS, Yi Qian climbed up the tree and looked into the distance. Yi Qian came down from the tree and spread out the 2 maps. After about 10 minutes, the maps folded. Yi Qian didn't leave immediately. Instead, she observed her surroundings. Although she had been running all the way last night, she hadn't gone astray. It was just that she had lost her bearings when she was walking around with the black bear. Based on the distance from the GPS and the map, she was about 15 kilometers away from her original training location. Captain Xia would definitely look for her footprints, but now her position had deviated. Yi Jian furrowed her brows slightly, her face a little solemn. Should she stay here and wait? Or do I have to walk another 15 kilometers? Chapter 27:31. Yi Qian made his choice in less than a minute. He climbed up a tree and used a shovel to chop off some branches to cover the black bear. He then cleaned up the area and immediately left for the place where the team had trained before. She had originally planned to go there, but because she had deviated from her original direction, she ended up here. The best way to meet up in the vast mountains was to go to the place where the 2 of them had stayed together before. As for following the footprints, she wasn't sure if the night's rain had washed away her and the black bear's footprints. To be safe, it was best to go to the place she had decided on earlier. With a decision, her goal was clear. With a clear goal in mind, Yi Qian strode toward the location he had decided on. After about an hour or so, Li Jinyan and the Special Forces soldiers in his team removed all the branches that were covering the black bear. Everyone looked at the huge creature in front of them and sucked in a breath of cold air. This is my first time seeing it. Big Eel, whose eyes were filled with surprise, used the tip of his foot to nudge the black bear. If I were to encounter it, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to handle it in a short time. Even if it wasn't for you, it would be the same for me. It's a huge monster. When we train in the deep sea, we have sonar all around to prevent sharks and whales from entering by mistake. Nothing you put in the mountains will stop the big guys from entering. Another water demon from the Storm Commandos also said with a look of surprise. Li Jinyan didn't look at his comrade who was speaking. Instead, he said calmly, check the black bear's body and see if there are any injuries. If there were several bullet holes in the body, it meant that Qing Niao and the black bear had indeed had a fierce battle. If there were only 1 or 2 bullet holes, it meant the opposite. Li Jinyan directly checked the black bear's head. When he removed the branches, he immediately saw dried blood around the black bear's head. Soon, they realized that other than the bullet hole in the head, there were no other injuries on the black bear's body. Everyone looked at each other and read the same thing in each other's eyes. Amazing, Qing Niao. Contact the forest police and get the black bear out. Li Jinyan could finally put down the heavy stone in his heart. Other than the head, there were no other injuries on the black bear. It was obvious that his sister did not have a fierce battle with the black bear last night. At a distance of nearly 3 to 4 meters, she finished off the black bear with a blank cartridge. The bullet was fired from a high angle and a low angle, which meant that she had finished shooting from a tree. The forest armed police had long known that the troops trained in the mountains did not encounter a landslide. Other than being wet, there were no other problems. At this moment, he received a satellite call saying that a black bear had been hit by a lone comrade. The armed police officer who answered the phone stiffened. A lone comrade killed a black bear. How could this big guy be killed? Last night there was an earthquake in the mountains. The guys who live in the mountains are all intelligent. The black bear is a big guy who loves to be irritable. Ken was shocked and happened to meet a soldier who was alone, so he was killed. Commander Ding, who was still holding half a steamed bun in his hand, walked into the office. He was still eating breakfast when a soldier came to report the situation. He did not finish his breakfast and left with a steamed bun. He said to the squad leader who went to transport the black bear, "Don't ask for the reason when you go there. You guys don't get off the helicopter either. Put down the rope and let them tie up the black bear themselves. You guys just pull it up and leave. Don't talk nonsense, no one will think you're mute." Chapter 2732. Yes, sir. The squad leader, who had been in charge of the supplies in the mountains, immediately left with his 3 comrades in a helicopter. Not long after the helicopter took off, Xia Jinyuan led the Snowfield Brigade to the location where they had trained 2 days ago. The 7 of them searched around the area, but they didn't find any trace of Qing Niao. Xia Jinyuan immediately asked Han Zheng to contact Li Jinyan with the satellite phone. The black bear that chased you guys last night has been killed by Qing Niao. The situation is looking good. The weather was getting better. Li Jinyan changed into a dry combat uniform. Because he thought Qing Niao was fine, he even smiled faintly. The black bear was only shot in the head. Other than that, there are no other obvious injuries. In other words, his little fox didn't have a fierce battle with the black bear. Xia Jinyuan also thought of this. The light in his dim eyes began to dim slightly. In the end, it was so bright that it was a little scary. It was like the first rays of the morning sun shining into his eyes. It was very bright but also very hot. Understood. Leave the black bear to the forest police. You guys stay here and wait for my news. When I receive Qing Niao, we will set off together. The rendezvous location remains unchanged. He licked the corner of his mouth. An unknown light flashed in the depths of his dark eyes. It was a little evil, a little cruel, but also a trace of tenderness that couldn't be easily seen. Very good, little fox. It's time for us to settle the score together. Yi Qian didn't know that she was going to be punished, but she soon found out. Looking at the tall and slender figure walking towards her, Yi Qian wanted to escape. The surrounding comrades tactfully retreated. At this time, "Sigh, good luck to you, Qing Niao. There's nothing wrong with sacrificing a pawn to save the king. What's wrong is, why didn't you discuss it with Q King and catch Q King off guard and act alone like a rabbit? Taboo. Taboo. Qing Niao, you violated Q King's taboo." Xia Jinyuan walked towards Yi Jian with a cold and expressionless face, but his body was obviously filled with anger. The soldiers of the Shuiyu team all silently moved away. Good luck to you, Qing Miao. I wonder if Q King will be merciful to you on account of you being a female soldier. When have you ever seen Q King show mercy to someone who has made a mistake? Do you still remember how we teased him when he first took over our team? G3 replied coldly to the T8 combatant who asked the question. His gaze was fixed on the figure who had already walked up to Qing Miao. Q King, you're clearly the stingy Q King. The T6 combatant chuckled and joked about how they used to tease each other. The stingy king was stingy about everything. He was stingy about every minute and second. He was stingy about the details and mistakes. In the end, his comrades who were originally unconvinced by him were all convinced. It couldn't be helped. Although the problems he picked out were all small ones, he could always make them suffer from the great harm caused by these small problems. After a long time, everyone was convinced by this young captain who had come out of nowhere. After countless trials and tribulations together, the tacit understanding between them grew deeper and deeper. Needless to say, there was no need for Q King to say anything. They knew what he meant just by looking at him in battle. Now that he was walking towards Qing Miao, everyone knew that Qing Miao was going to be scolded again. So, don't expect Q King to show mercy, let alone let Qing Miao off easily, G3 concluded and led his comrades to retreat again. That was because Q King glanced in their direction with a sharp gaze. Chapter 2733. Stop looking. Stop looking. Back off. His gaze is killing me again. Back off the warning line. Bullsh *T warning line. F *CK, are you stupid? Back off to a place where we can't see Q King and Qing Miao. That's outside the warning line. Haha, you're so smart. Rustling sounds could be heard. Their drenched comrades retreated as fast as they could. Beyond the warning line, where they couldn't see what the two people in front of them were about to do. After confirming that there was no one behind him, the cold Xia Jinyuan suddenly stretched out his hand and hugged Yi Jian, who had frightened him the whole night, tightly in his arms. Yi Qian, you sure have guts, he said in a low voice, gritting his teeth. You're so gutsy that you've successfully angered me again. He hugged her tightly and felt her warmth passing through their clothes into his body. Xia Jinyuan's tall and straight body trembled slightly as he regained his life after the disaster. Yi Qian was a little dumbfounded. Was he hugging her and warning her now? Why don't you let go of me first, then you can deal with me later, Yi Jian said anxiously. Ever since he walked out from behind the tree, she could feel his anger from the cold air around him and the way he looked at her. Her captain was angry. Why was he angry? Yi Qian had never considered the possibility that he would be angry. Countless possibilities flashed through her mind, and in the end she was left with only one. After the reason for his anger was fixed in her mind, Yi Qian knew she was going to be punished. She had been beaten up by him for playing tricks on the training ground last year. Today was the second time she was being punished. She didn't feel uneasy or afraid. She only felt at ease when he hugged her tightly. Yi Qian raised her hands that were hanging by her sides and slowly hugged his broad and thick back. Her right hand gently patted his back. As she clapped her hands, his cold voice sounded in her ear. Sacrificing your soldiers to protect your commander? Very good, that's cool. Acting first and reporting later is going to be a problem for me. I'm already prepared to be punished. Yi Qian sighed. I've already realized where I went wrong and made you angry. But at that time, when I heard that you decided to lure the black bear away, I only had one reaction. You can't go, it's the best decision for me to go. I also guessed that you would stop me. I only guessed that you would stop me. I didn't think too deeply about it. Without any discussion, without even agreeing on a general meeting point, and without even giving him any time to prepare, They had directly acted when the communication system was already broken, acting on their own accord. There was only one reason why he was angry, because she had acted without his permission. Fine, fine. She was willing to be punished. When Xia Jinyuan heard the reason why he was angry, the anger in his eyes grew bigger instead of being suppressed. Sometimes she was so calm that it was terrifying. Xia Jinyuan tightened his grip again. Even his handsome face revealed a hint of sharpness. His hoarse voice seemed to be suppressed by something. While it sounded tense, it was also dark. Your actions were indeed the reason for my anger, but other than that, is there no other reason? Other reasons, of course there were. I know there are other reasons, but aren't we in the middle of training? I don't think it's appropriate for me to say other reasons. So, you want me to let go of you before we talk about this? Xia Jinyuan pressed. Yi Qian was a little embarrassed. He cleared his throat before answering, "Aren't you afraid of being seen and causing a bad impression?" Chapter 27:34. As soon as she opened her mouth, Xia Jinyuan found an outlet for his anger. He clenched his fists tightly and said through gritted teeth, "Acting without permission, unable to contact you, stormy weather, mountain collapses, black bears chasing after you. Yi Qian, you made me worry the entire night. I was worried that something would happen to you, worried that you would get hurt, worried that you would encounter a mountain collapse, worried that you would be bitten by a black bear. For the entire night, every minute and every second felt like I had lived for another 26 years. The man's voice was so tense that there was no elasticity in it at all. It was as if it would shatter into pieces with just a slight pressure. Yi Qian's heart melted into water. No, nothing will happen to me. We promised each other that we would work hard and not let anything happen to us. Captain Xia, I didn't forget. While his heart melted, he was also deeply moved. I found my family, and I haven't gotten along well with them yet. How could anything happen to them? The situation last night was indeed dangerous, but I knew what I was doing. I don't regret making such a decision. I'm a soldier, and you're the commander. I had to sacrifice the soldiers to save the commander. I believe that any of my comrades would have made the same choice as me last night. Yes, I know where I went wrong. I'm willing to accept punishment and learn from it. I won't make the same mistake again." Xia Jinyuan had the urge to bite her neck. When he was beaten up by the devil last night, he didn't even try to block the blow. He was too flustered, so flustered that he felt as if a big hole had been dug in his heart. The cold wind kept pouring into his limbs, and even raising his hand was particularly stiff. As for the fist that landed on his body, he felt the pain, and at the same time, he felt that his heart was still alive, and his body could still move. Using the pain to cover up his flustered heart was what he had hoped for the most. He hoped that the devil's fist would hit him harder. He hoped that the devil would use all his strength to beat him up so that he could feel that he was still alive. He thought about biting her neck, and in the next second, Xia Jinyuan really did it. It wasn't a light bite, but a hard bite. Caught off guard, Yi Qian was in pain. His body stiffened, and then he didn't dare to move. "Don't bite too hard. If you bite too hard, my brother will see it, and then you'll be the unlucky one." She didn't dare to move and could only remind him softly. At this time, she was still thinking about his own safety. Xia Jinyuan's heart ached and he was touched. Tears welled up in his eyes. The Devil King was right. Xia Jinyuan must have cultivated good fortune in his previous life, the life before that, and the life before that countless generations. That was why he had Yi Jian's good karma today. That was why he had such a great fortune. How many people in this world would be able to do what she did when she used her life to remember them? How many men could have such good karma? Xia Jinyuan, who had tears in his eyes, bit her harder. He bit her for at least a minute before letting her go. His warm, thin lips did not leave immediately. Instead, He gently kissed the tender skin that had been bitten by him and used his tongue to lick it again and again. It was very, very salty. There was her sweat, and also the rain from the sky. Yi Qian's heart trembled. This man was really scared. He was so scared that even his lips were trembling. He was scared that something would happen to her. He was scared that something would happen to her. He was scared that he would lose her. This powerful man who seemed to be omnipotent was so scared that his tall body was trembling. Chapter 27:35. Xia Jinyuan rarely lost his composure. It could be said that Yi Qian had never seen him lose his composure before. His image in Yi Qian's heart was like a giant, a mountain, and a river that could not be crossed. Even when she lost contact with him after entering the snowy mountains with the soldiers to rescue the art troupe that was trapped in the avalanche, the man in front of her had never lost his composure. At that time, she had the Devil King, J5, Long Eagle, and other comrades by her side. Facing the same natural disaster, he did not panic when he found her. That was because she was not alone at that time. But this time, in such bad weather and a very dangerous situation, she was the only one facing it. This man was afraid. He was really afraid of losing her. Her neck was burning in pain from the bite, but her heart was boiling, so hot that tears were flowing out of her eyes. You were all waiting for me to come back. How could I let anything happen to me? I'll be fine. Captain Xia, for you, for myself, for my family, I won't let anything happen to me. I'll definitely protect myself well so that you can all be at ease. Yi Qian, whose heart was boiling because of the strong emotions he suddenly released, spoke softly and tried her best to comfort the man who had lost his composure because of her. Xia Jinyuan was indeed afraid. He was really afraid. In the face of a hail of bullets, he was not afraid at all. Even if he was shot, it was a calamity that soldiers had to go through. As a Special Forces soldier, it was unbelievable that he had not been shot before. Therefore, if one day he knew that Yi Qian had been shot, he would not be so afraid. But this time, he was afraid. He was really afraid. She had faced all the dangers alone. He really did not want to experience this kind of fear again. But it also made him more aware that danger was everywhere between them. One day they might die. One day, not even a corpse would be left. I'm a little regretful, Yi Qian. I'm suddenly regretting it. Even after hugging her for a long time, Xia Jinyuan did not let go of his arm. Instead, he used more and more strength, as if he wanted to strangle her into his bones. He murmured softly, I'm really regretting it, Yi Qian. What was there to regret? Xia Jinyuan regretted making her a soldier, regretted making her so delicate, regretted making her follow him around for training. There were too many regrets. As those thoughts of regret flashed through his mind, Xia Jinyuan was even more aware that the girl in his arms was his life. Her existence was the existence of his life. What's the use of regretting? It was useless. Even if he regretted it, it was useless. Because of Yi Jian's safety, even someone as powerful as Xia Jinyuan's unbreakable state of mind was shaken. Yi Qian's expression hardened. I have no regrets, Captain Xia. The path I've chosen is the path I love the most. I love my profession, I love the military uniform I'm wearing, and I look forward to fighting a bloody battle with you. I don't regret it. I definitely won't regret it. Captain Xia, this is my own choice. Other than myself, even you can't change my mind. Captain Xia, my lover, you don't know that I've chosen this path to truly come back to life. I've truly become a human for once. I've lived a dignified and enjoyable life. If I hadn't chosen this path, how could I have met you? She did not regret it. After living 2 lives, the one thing she did not regret the most was joining the military. If she hadn't joined the military, she would not have met him, she would not have fallen in love, and she would not have been able to reunite with her family. Chapter 27:36. Captain Xia, Don't say such things again. I don't like it at all. Also, I'll interpret it as you regretting meeting me," Yi Qian told Xia Jinyuan in a serious tone. Her calmness also made Xia Jinyuan understand that the girl in his arms had really grown up. She had already become a qualified and outstanding Special Forces soldier. He should be gratified and shouldn't say something like regret. Training and life had to be treated differently. Only by doing so could he keep calm. Just like last night, when facing Li Jinyan's questioning, he told him that this was the choice of a soldier. Only in front of her would he show his weakness. No one else could see how worried he was about Yi Qian acting alone. "I won't say it again. I won't say it again in the future. There's nothing to regret, only a choice." Xia Jinyuan chuckled softly, and the confusion between his brows disappeared instantly. "Little fox, this is the choice between you and me. You provoked me, so you have to take responsibility for the rest of your life. You provoked me, so you can't escape. You're destined to follow me." Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Captain Xia, I've never provoked you. You're the one who provoked me." He was playing the blame game now. "Before I met you, I was prepared to be single for the rest of my life, never get married, and stay in the army for the rest of my life. But you appeared and forcefully barged into my life. You were so dazzling as the sun, constantly emitting heat that made me want to get close to you. Little fox, do you dare say that you didn't provoke me? Since you provoked me, you have to take responsibility. This time, I'm angry at you for acting on your own initiative, but I also admire your spirit of sacrifice. You have the awareness of a soldier, you know how to consider the big picture, and you know what the most beneficial choice is. But you're also wrong, my big mistake. I've never advocated for the team members to make decisions on their own when it comes to dangerous missions, and I don't like them to act first and report later." The lieutenant colonel released her hands and stood in front of her. The smile on his handsome face had already disappeared, and the coldness that belonged to Q King gradually appeared. Finally, his deep and affectionate black eyes were cold. "They all know that I have these minefields that they can't touch. They know very well what kind of punishment they will face once they touch my minefield. Qing Niao, your decision last night just happened to step on my minefield and successfully angered me. Therefore, it was time for her to accept her punishment." He did not give her any time to rest, nor did he give her any time to catch her breath. If she made a mistake, she would be punished on the spot. This was Xia Jinyuan's way of doing things. 4 hours of standing as punishment. You were so tired last night, you'll pass out if you stand for another 4 hours. T6 muttered softly and looked sympathetically at Yi Qian, who was standing under the sun. He only dared to mutter and did not dare to plead for mercy. If she really fainted, the one who would be the saddest wouldn't be anyone else but Q King. T6 thought to himself. Then he added silently, "With Qing Niao's stamina, the possibility of her passing out is not high. However, let's not go near Q King today. The atmosphere is too oppressive, and whoever touches him will be unlucky." V8 moved closer to T6 and finished his words in a low voice. No one dared to step forward to plead for mercy for Qing Niao. Q King's rule was to punish those who made a mistake, and all his comrades were no exception. Qing Niao, who had already become a reserve Special Forces member of the Snowfield Brigade, was no exception. Chapter 2737. All of you, shut your mouths. K7's tone was low as well. Hearing his comrades mumbling behind him, K7, who was about to complete the climb, ordered coldly. In front of them was a cliff. Other than Qing Niao, all of his comrades, including the water demons, had to complete this mission today. They had to go up first and then come back down. Only when everyone had completed this mission could Qing Niao, who was punished to stand, move. It was supposed to be 4 hours, but the water demons led by the Demon King hadn't arrived yet. 15 kilometers would take an hour or so on average. Since they were still walking on a mountain path, multiplying the time by 2, it would still take them 2 hours. 2 hours later, the Demon King and the others arrived at the bottom of the cliff and started to climb. A round trip of 8 people would take another 2 to 3 hours. Including the time they needed to start climbing, Qing Niao would have to stand still for at least 4.5 hours. The coldness in K7's eyes deepened. G3, who had completed the climb with his bare hands, looked at K7 meaningfully. Seeing K7's pursed lips, G3's heart skipped a beat. K7's reaction was a bit too much. "Your gaze makes me uncomfortable." K7, who was sensitive, caught his comrade's meaningful gaze. He said in a calm voice, "I admire Qing Niao, but I don't have a crush on Qing Niao." His comrade was too sensitive and honest. Even someone as calm as G3 couldn't help but chuckle. "You don't usually care about these things." "I'm just overthinking." "I'm not overthinking. Qing Niao has the smell of blood on her. That woman's period is here." K7 from the forensics team talked about Yi Qian's period with a calm expression. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. "She doesn't look too good. She might really faint. If you have time to talk, why don't you hurry and climb up?" Q King must know, but he has already given his orders. Military orders don't change. He's the captain and the soul of our team. It's useless even if he knows. It's up to us to buy time for Qing Niao. When G3 found out that Yi Qian was on her period, she felt awkward. However, K7 was calm and even analyzed the risk. Her awkwardness disappeared along with her concern for Qing Niao. With a cold expression, he said in a deep voice, "Hurry up. Even if it's 10 minutes earlier, we can prevent her from standing 10 minutes shorter." Yi Qian couldn't hide her period from her comrades. Her period had always been reported in the middle of the month, and she hadn't taken any pads. Blood seeped out and the stench of blood spread out. The special forces of the Snowfield Brigade were very sensitive to the smell of blood. The moment the K7 stepped on the rocks near Yi Qian's feet, they could smell the blood. Soon, the comrades in the team all knew about it. Glancing at the handsome and cold Q King, everyone put on their combat gloves and did their best to climb with their bare hand. "Hurry up and speed up. Don't let any accidents happen. The 3 of you will go together to save time." "Okay, I'm not surprised." When they reached the edge of the cliff, they communicated with their eyes and hand speed for a few seconds. Under Xia Jinyuan's cold gaze, they started to climb. When Li Jinyan heard the news, he led his soldiers and walked very quickly. Without any worries, his footsteps were exceptionally light. Therefore, when he walked quickly, he didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he felt that it was too slow. The mountains in Tibet were not as hot in July. After the heavy rain, even if the weather was sunny, there was still a hint of coolness. This coolness made the special forces feel very comfortable. Chapter 2738. Li Jinyan, who had rushed over from 15 kilometers away, saw Yi Qian standing motionlessly under the sun with a gun in her arms. His cold eyes suddenly darkened. "Rest for 3 minutes and adjust your breathing. Hurry up and finish the climb." Li Jinyan already knew what training they were going to do from the microphone, but he didn't know that his sister was being punished by standing under the sun. Li Jinyan raised his head and looked at the Snowfield Brigade's Special Forces soldiers who had finished their descent. He didn't go over to check on Yi Qian's situation first. He immediately arranged for his soldiers to complete the mission. "Yes, sir." The water demons who received the order all glanced at Qing Niao from the corner of their eyes. Their expressions were slightly tense. The Snowfield Brigade's Q King was even colder than the Devil King. They were the same kind of people. They were swift and decisive, and they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. They were strict with themselves and their comrades. Even though it was tough to have such a captain, it was very reassuring. After making the arrangements, Li Jinyan strode towards his sister. He walked very quickly, and the soft green grass on both sides seemed to automatically make way for the cold man to walk past. Before they set off, Li Jinyan had changed into a dry camouflage combat uniform. After the emergency walk, his back was soaked with sweat. The camouflage uniform clung tightly to his muscular back, outlining his masculine sexiness. No matter how cold his expression was, it still made people yearn for him. He was about the same height as Xia Jinyuan, and with each step he took 2 shorter steps. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Yi Qian. When he got closer, he saw that Yi Qian's face was slightly pale. Her lips were also covered with a faint layer of gray, and bean-sized sweat was dripping down her face. It was obvious that she wasn't feeling well, and he could smell the scent of blood on her. "How much longer do you want to stand for?" His thin lips were pursed into a straight line, and his entire body was as sharp as a sword as he asked in a low voice. Yi Qian did not answer. K7, who was standing on the cliff and preparing to descend, answered for Yi Qian. "Devil, Qing Niao can't speak. Pay attention to her feet. Don't disturb her." Upon hearing this, Li Jinyan immediately lowered his head to take a look. His originally cold face was now filled with anger. There was a small stone behind Qing Niao's heel, and a small stone in front of her toes. She can't move. If her heel or toe touches the rock, she will have to stand again. K7 explained and descended with G3 and Z7. Below them, Xia Jinyuan, V8, T6, and Z7 had already dropped by half. Li Jinyan, whose heart was filled with resentment, pressed the corners of his mouth as low as it could go. There were dark clouds above his head, and thunder, lightning, and torrential rain could come at any time. Ruthless. The 2 words he spat out were like hailstones in June. They were cold, heavy, and intimidating. Yi Qian didn't even move her eyes. She stared at her brother, who was worried about her. Then, she gently blinked her eyes to indicate that she was fine. Li Jinyan, who received her gaze, nodded slightly. He took a deep breath, turned around, and strode away. This was Q King's punishment for a team member who made a mistake. No matter how much his heart ached for his sister, he had no right to interfere. Ruthless, ruthless. I really regret not going easy on him last night. It was too short. I should have given him a good beating. Yi Qian let out a sigh of relief. Her period was here. She was really afraid that her brother would ask her what was going on after smelling the blood. That would make her very embarrassed. K7 probably knew. It wasn't just a guess, it was a certainty. After placing the rock, he looked at her deeply. Chapter 2739. Yi Qian's heart crumbled when her comrades found out that she was on her period. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't face her comrades as usual. Even her brother was the same. Looking at Li Jinyan's back as he strode away, Yi Jian heaved a sigh of relief. She was actually glad that she had been punished instead of a normal activity. If she was punished, she wouldn't have to say anything. If she was punished, she could avoid the awkwardness and make it look as if nothing was wrong. As for her brother's dark expression when he left, Yi Qian prayed silently for Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who punished her. When the brother-in-law was angry, the brother-in-law was waiting to take action. Knowing that everyone had to complete the climb before Yi Jian could move his limbs, Li Jinyan, who wanted to finish the climb as soon as possible, leaped. Although he was tall and big, he was so agile that it was as if he was leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls. It didn't take him long to catch up with the big mermaid and the others. "Damn! Demon King, how are you so fast?" The eel was so shocked that he stopped climbing. His eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the Demon King, who caught up with him and then overtook him. So fast, so fast, so fast. He was so shocked that he couldn't help but exclaim, "Now you know why the Demon King is so harsh on our training. It's because the difference in strength between us and him is too great." The eel stepped on a groove and grasped the foothold with both hands. He narrowed his eyes and looked up at the figure that had climbed in front of them in the blink of an eye. He said softly, "Deil, let's make a bet. The Demon King's strength is probably more terrifying than what we've seen. Look at him now, it's enough to shock us." "More terrifying than what we've seen? I don't think so. Don't we usually finish our training together? He's indeed more powerful than us, but not to the extent that we're afraid. Q King's strength is terrifying. He's like a bottomless pit. We can't see the bottom at all. He can do everything by sea, land, and air. He can be the king of special forces in any military unit." Deil answered skeptically. "No, we must be wrong. The Demon King is definitely hiding part of his strength. Look at Q King, a powerful special forces soldier. The Demon King is not inferior to him at all. They are completely on par." After the Great Mermaid finished speaking, it gritted its teeth and climbed up again. Climbing barehanded and without any protection, facing a cliff that was tens of meters high, they couldn't help but feel a little scared. However, the Infernal King did not do so. Every time he climbed, he was extremely stable. He did not need to test the waters like the rest of them. After confirming that there were no problems, he began to raise his leg. The Demon King didn't even need to test the waters. His powerful arms climbed higher and higher, and the muscles on his slender and straight legs tightened. When he stepped on the ground, he would immediately raise his other leg, which was why he was so fast. When we return to the team, we can ask the Demon King why he hid a part of his strength. Now that the Demon King was almost 2 meters ahead of them in an instant, the big eel, who had been skeptical, finally believed it. It was easy to go up a mountain, but difficult to go down. It was the same for climbing. It took an hour and 42 minutes to go up Xia Jinyuan, and an hour and 40 minutes to go down 2/3 of the way. Soon, Li Jinyan, who had climbed up, was on the same line as him. With Z7 between them, Li Jinyan's gaze swept over the guy who punished his sister like an arrow. "Q King, you'd better look Qing Niao when you go down," Li Jinyan said coldly as he tightened one of the sturdy old vines growing on the cliff with one hand. "Her body is barely holding on. There's not much blood left. Just wait for her to faint." Chapter 2740. After Li Jinyan finished speaking, he pursed his lips even tighter and straighter. He knew in his heart that what he said was actually wrong. He shouldn't have said those words. He shouldn't have criticized Xia Jinyuan. But when he saw Xia Jinyuan and thought of his sister standing under the sun with little color on her face, he couldn't help it. There were times when his rationality would go on strike as well. "I have no right to interfere with your decision, but here I am." On the high cliff, Li Jinyan, who didn't have any protective measures, loosened his grip and pointed to his chest. He knew he shouldn't have criticized him, but at this moment, he didn't regret it. "I can't accept it. I can't accept it. I have personal feelings, very serious personal feelings. Q King, Qing Niao is your soldier. She was wrong to make a decision on her own last night, but why did she do it? You know very well in your heart. Q King, I respect your decision to punish her, but I can't accept it. I can't accept it in my heart." Xia Jinyuan wasn't surprised that Li Jinyan criticized him. Although they were the same kind of people, sometimes so calm that it was almost cruel, when it came to Yi Qian, things like rationality were like bitten by a dog. He punished Qing Niao. This was the right decision, but at the same time, he also had his own intentions. The military intended to groom Qing Niao to be the leader of Pigeon's team. There were many things that had to be arranged in advance. Back then, when he became the leader of the entire Snowfield Brigade, how many people could understand the bitterness of it? He was parachuted in without any foundation and had to rely on himself for everything. He had to make the group of outstanding veterans obey him and listen to his arrangements. Every step was too difficult for him. After working so hard for so many times, He wanted to just throw away his responsibilities and leave. He wanted to shout, "I quit!" How could he not do it? He couldn't. No matter how difficult and tiring it was, he had to grit his teeth and do it. Later, Han Zheng came in with him. With Han Zheng helping him and taking his orders as the most important, over time, G3 and the others were influenced and didn't resist as much. At that moment, he understood that as long as there was a comrade in the team who supported him and obeyed him, a lot of work would go exceptionally smoothly. He did not want Qing Niao to go through all the hardships and sufferings he had gone through. He did not know if Qing Niao would be able to persevere. Would she grit her teeth like him and shoulder the role of captain, no matter how tough and tiring it was? He didn't dare to gamble. He needed to take it one step at a time. Today's punishment was necessary, so why not change the meaning of the punishment? Xia Jinyuan wouldn't say these innermost thoughts and plans in front of his comrades. Z7, who was sandwiched in the middle, looked at the Demon King, then turned to look at Q King, who was gritting his teeth and not saying a word. He sighed in his heart. He saw the suppressed emotions in his good friend's eyes. They were like a surging tide. He was close to him and could clearly see that his good friend was clenching his teeth so hard that his cheeks were white. How could Q King not feel heartache when he punished Qing Niao? Demon King Z7, Han Zheng, couldn't help but speak up for his good friend and his captain. Q King's heartache is no less than yours. He also used his fastest speed to complete the climb up and down. He also wants to shorten the time to end Qing Niao's punishment. In the team, Q King will punish everyone selflessly when we make a mistake. He has always treated everyone equally. Qing Niao, I know about your relationship with her. I also feel bad that she is being punished. But Demon King, Qing Niao herself said that life and training should be separated. Chapter 2741. Han Zheng was probably the only one who understood the deeper meaning behind Xia Jinyuan's punishment of Qing Niao, so he couldn't help but speak up for his good friend. Right now, Qing Niao is just our comrade in arms and Q King is her superior and subordinate. Other than that, she has no other relationship with us. If we decide the punishment based on closeness and estrangement, devil, this will cause Q King to lose his prestige and trust. He will also lose the position he should have in the hearts of the team members. Q King didn't do anything wrong. Since Qing Niao was in the wrong, she should accept the punishment. All of our team members feel sorry for Qing Niao, but we don't think Q King's decision is wrong. And devil, you see Qing Niao being punished now, but this is actually... Xia Jinyuan, who had been silent all this while, stopped Han Zheng from continuing. He looked straight at the devil and said in a deep voice, "Devil, a mistake is a mistake. There's no escaping it." He stopped Han Zheng and didn't explain further after he finished speaking. Taking a deep look at the Demon King, he no longer stayed behind with his cold and handsome face. Instead, he walked down step by step. He didn't want to explain, and he couldn't. It didn't matter whether the Demon King understood or not. He was Little Fox's boyfriend, and also the captain of the Green Bird team. She had done something wrong, and as the captain, he had no right to give her any face. Moreover, as the team leader, the devil also said that he respected his decision, but he couldn't accept it in his heart. It was right that he couldn't accept it in his heart. He was Little Fox's brother. How could he accept seeing his sister being punished when her body wasn't in good condition? He couldn't accept it emotionally. Forgive him for not being able to understand it because he also couldn't accept it. One of them went up while the other went down. They were all trying to end Yi Qian's punishment as soon as possible. You're the team leader. I respect your decision, but that doesn't stop me from having opinions about you. You can call me emotional or impulsive, but Q King, I'm telling you personally that I already have a problem with you. Upon hearing this, Xia Jinyuan's cold and handsome face finally changed. He stared at his future brother-in-law for a few seconds, pursed his dry lips, and sighed. Devil, Qing Miao will not be an ordinary Special Forces soldier in the future. Please calm down and think about my intentions. I'm punishing Qing Miao with my status. Demon King, don't you think my heart aches? It's as painful as being pricked by a needle. The last sentence came out in a low growl. Yi Qian, who was facing the cliff, had already seen the confrontation between the two of them. She watched as the two silhouettes stayed there for 2 minutes, and felt a little anxious. She was afraid that the two of them would start arguing. 2 minutes later, Xia Jinyuan was the first to descend. Yi Qian heaved a sigh of relief. Her brother wasn't in a good mood, so she could only ask Captain Xia to give in. The afternoon sun was so hot that the surrounding vegetation seemed to have lost its vitality. The trees and grass were wilting and drooping softly. The cicadas in the mountain were still patiently chirping, cicadas, cicadas, over and over again. It was as if they were using up all their remaining energy. The sky was blue and the mountains in the distance were green and lush. Yi Qian didn't move an inch to distract herself. She used the corner of her eyes to look at the beautiful scenery in the distance. Hold on a little longer. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. In her heart, Yi Qian kept telling herself that she just needed to hold on a little longer. Chapter 2742. K7, who had finally finished climbing, looked in the direction of Yi Qian. He paused for a moment and strode towards Xia Jinyuan. The team members who had finished climbing could start the next round of training. As the team leader, Xia Jinyuan also completed the training together with the team members. Xia Jinyuan had always been strict with himself when it came to training. The anti-exposure training was in progress. Everyone held a rifle in their hands. A piece of wood was hanging from the muzzle of the rifle. It wasn't a small caliber piece of wood, but a piece of wood that was as thick as an adult's arm and 20 centimeters long. Hanging a piece of wood from the muzzle of the rifle and a brick from Yi Qian's heels and toes were all based on the same principle. They had to keep their bodies motionless and prevent the wood from shaking. The wood was vertical and was only tied with a rope. As long as the soldier moved his body slightly, the rifle in his hand would move as well. The vertical wood would shake, and shaking meant failure. Compared to Yi Qian's anti-exposure training, their training was actually more difficult. When K7 saw the two pieces of wood hanging from the muzzle of Xia Jinyuan's rifle, his expression changed slightly. Q King was using his own method to be punished together with Qing Miao. The Demon King's heart ached for Qing Miao, but Q King's heart ached even more. Qing Miao's period is here. When it's over, go and take care of her. K7 tied a rope around the muzzle of his rifle and said calmly, "The Demon King is angry because he knows that Qing Miao's period is here." Qing Miao's period is here? Xia Jinyuan, who didn't know, narrowed his eyes. He didn't even smell blood on her when he was carrying her. When I was putting the rock in her body, I smelled a very faint scent of blood. When you were carrying her, her period wasn't here yet. The Demon King must know. They were all soldiers who had blood on their hands and were especially sensitive to the smell of blood. The smell of blood on Qing Miao's body could not be concealed from everyone. It will take at least 2.5 hours for the Demon King and the others to finish. Q King has already been Qing Miao for more than 4 hours. Another 2.5 hours. Almost 7 hours of exposure to the sun. She will indeed faint. Originally, they thought that it would be over in 4.5 to 5 hours, but the reality was wrong. It was even harder to climb to the top, which seriously delayed their time. 7 hours of exposure to the sun. The longest time they had been exposed to the sun was only 4 hours. The weather in the mountains was good, and the temperature was lower than outside. An extra hour of exposure to the sun was good, except for the physical exhaustion. But adding another 2 hours was unacceptable. Xia Jinyuan said, "Let's go and check on Qing Miao's condition." We'll decide based on the situation. He did not immediately suspend Yi Qian's punishment. He nodded, put the rifle on his back, and strode towards Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan, who was waiting for K7 to come back, couldn't calm down. Qing Niao's period was not that painful, but she would feel slightly uncomfortable on the first day. Last night, she was drenched in the rain and had to run through the night. No matter how strong her body was, the arrival of her period would destroy her strong heart. I hope she's fine. I hope she's fine. K7 was already asking Yi Qian, Qing Niao, I'm the team's doctor. My questions are not inappropriate, so you don't have to feel awkward. I want to know, how long can you last? K7 knew that she was shy, so he did not directly ask Yi Qian if her period came. Instead, he asked in a different way. Chapter 27:43. Even so, Yi Qian could feel waves of blood rushing to her head. She had been standing still for more than 4 hours. She was close to her limit of 5 hours. Her whole body was so stiff that it felt like she was covered in a layer of plaster. She couldn't move her body, and even speaking took a lot of effort. I can't stand for long. The longest I've been exposed to was 5 hours, but the temperature was much higher than this. There's a cool breeze now, so it might be longer than 5 hours. After speaking, Yi Qian realized that her voice was extremely hoarse. It was as if someone had sprinkled a handful of salt on it. Her throat was so dry that it itched. K7 glanced at her lower body. He couldn't see any blood stains. Okay, I got it. K7 didn't say much. He retracted his gaze and returned to Xia Jinyuan's side. His pale face darkened as he said in a low voice, her limit is 5 hours. Now that the temperature is suitable, she can last another hour at most. An hour later, Li Jinyan led the water ghosts back to the surface. G3 stood opposite Xia Jinyuan, facing Yi Qian. He kept his gaze on Yi Qian without blinking. He wanted to see if there was anything wrong with Yi Qian. He was standing there because Xia Jinyuan had arranged for him to do so. Xia Jinyuan couldn't face Yi Qian directly. He was worried that he wouldn't be ruthless enough and end up being unfair. In the end, he picked G3 and asked him to keep an eye on Yi Qian. When Yi Qian's body swayed slightly, G3's expression suddenly tensed up. He said in a low voice, Q King. Before he could finish, Xia Jinyuan threw the rifle in his hand over his shoulder, turned around and ran towards Yi Qian. His departure made his comrades in the Snowfield Brigade sigh in relief. This was the punishment for stopping Qing Niao in the past. 5.5 hours. Qing Niao had been standing there for a whole 5.5 hours. Fortunately, the temperature in the mountains wasn't high, and the cool breeze brushing against his face swept away some of his fatigue. Standing for 5.5 hours, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Yi Qian was already at his limit. Blood gushed out of his lower body. Yi Qian, who had been clenching his teeth, saw the man running towards him. Before he could even smile, he felt his vision darken. He didn't have time to react, nor did he have time to save himself. His stiff body fell forward. Yi Qian didn't feel anything, nor did he think about how painful the fall would be. His vision went black, and all the joints in his body lost their function as he fell to the ground in a daze. Yi Qian, who had fainted, didn't know that she wasn't lying in the bushes. Instead, she was in the arms of Xia Jinyuan, who was sprinting towards her. Qing Niao. Xia Jinyuan, whose eyes were trembling, hugged the fainted Yi Qian. Seeing that she was clenching her teeth and closing her eyes, Xia Jinyuan carried Yi Qian in his arms and ran towards K7. He didn't shout, nor did he disturb the devil who was still in the midst of his climbing training. His eyes were filled with anger, and the veins on his arms were bulging. He ran towards K7 at lightning speed. K7 was shocked by the ferocity of the shadow that was running behind him. It was as if a tiger was about to pounce on him. He immediately turned around, and at the same time, he subconsciously aimed the gun that was tied to the rope in front of him. When he saw that the person running towards him wasn't a tiger, he quickly put away his gun. Just as Xia Jinyuan's chest was about to hit the muzzle of the gun, he threw the gun onto his shoulder. Chapter 2744. The Special Forces soldiers who were undergoing anti-exposure training were all trying their best to control their bodies. They forced themselves to focus and not turn around. It was hard for them to endure, and the wooden planks were about to shake. Stay calm. With K7 and Q King taking care of her, Qing Niao will be fine. G3 reminded his comrades. He could see everything in front of him, so he could update his comrades on the latest situation. She fainted. K7 is taking care of her. It shouldn't be a big problem. Stand still. It was indeed not a big problem. The main problem was that her body had reached its limit. Plus, her period was a bit turbulent, so her blood flow was not regulated. She had been standing for too long without any rest and movement, so she fainted. Her heartbeat was normal, but her pulse was a bit unstable. K7 knelt on the ground to check, and found out that Qing Niao was fine. Only then did he realize that his back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. The fainted Yi Qian's face was so pale that it was almost translucent. Her skin was fair to begin with, and now that it was translucent, he could see the fine green veins clearly. When K7 saw this for the first time, his heart skipped a beat. He had never seen Yi Qian in such a weak state. She was so weak that her slender neck looked like it could break at any moment. Her entire body was weak and fragile. There was no vitality in her at all. She was so pale that it made one's heart sink. She's fine. She's exhausted and needs to rest. Take her to take care of the blood on her body. There are feminine products in her hygiene bag. Q King, you need to do two things. K7 did not feel awkward at all. He calmly ordered, change her clothes and change her into feminine products. There's iron solution and red brine syrup in the hygiene bag. These are specially prepared for the female soldiers in the military. Give her the red syrup after you're done. Xia Jinyuan did not feel awkward at all. He listened carefully and even nodded solemnly. I'll take her to the forest now. Don't put on all her clothes. Give her some ventilation and massage her joint. It's not good to stand for too long. It was rare for K7 to say so much without panting. Actually, it was obvious that K7 was panicking. How could he not be? At this moment, even Yi Qian's lips were deathly pale, without a trace of life. Xia Jinyuan picked up Yi Qian again with a gloomy face. Stuff the sanitary bag in her backpack into my clothes. Quick! Even though he knew that Yi Qian's fainting was partly due to exhaustion and partly due to her period, Xia Jinyuan's heart was still in turmoil. He was in so much pain that his voice was hoarse, and it took him a lot of effort to speak. Initially, when the Devil King said that she might faint, his heart had already skipped a beat. Later, when K7 said the same thing, he immediately had G3 stand facing Yi Qian so that he could discover the problem in time. He didn't dare to face her. He was afraid that every second he looked at her, the decision he made would change every second. Military orders couldn't be changed overnight. Not only would it not convince the public, it would also ignore military rules and regulations. Mistakes must be investigated, and mistakes must be punished. It was written clearly in the rules of the Shuiyu Brigade, and he would never leave the mistakes he made in training until the next day. If he could punish her on the day, he had to do it today. There was no such thing as the next day or delay. Now that she had really fainted in his arms, he did not regret it. He only felt heartache. He felt so heartache that his heart clenched and was ruthlessly crushed. She was a female soldier. There were too many things that she was at a disadvantage in, including training. K7 took out the medical bag and stuffed it into his clothes. K7 paused and asked him, "Do you know how to use it?" Chapter 2745. Yes. Xia Jinyuan answered and signaled K7 to put Yi Qian's backpack on his shoulder. Without stopping, the young lieutenant colonel ran towards the forest with the backpack on one shoulder and Yi Qian in his arms. Behind him, K7 put away his surprised expression. Q King said he studied the usage of female product. Why did it sound so weird to him? Which man would have the time to study the usage of feminine products? On the cliff, Li Jinyan didn't notice that Yi Qian had fainted. All his focus was on his hands and feet. After more than 2 hours of training, he had calmed down. As the captain, Q King didn't do anything wrong. Last night, he clearly told himself that there was no girlfriend on the training ground, only Qing Niao. If it was someone else who was punished today, he wouldn't be angry, and he wouldn't have lost his composure and asked Xia Jinyuan for an explanation. If it was someone else, he would only praise Q King for his iron fist. Devil, you're too fast. Watch your step. As Li Jinyan's speed increased, the 3 water demons who started climbing 10 minutes before him hurriedly reminded him. It was too fast, so fast that it made their hearts jump. Climbing is my strength, Li Jinyan calmly reminded his comrade. His long, slender legs stepped down again, stepping on a protruding rock covered in moss. After stepping firmly on it, he let go of the other one. Just like that, he cautiously and without losing speed, he returned downwards. Climbing with bare hands was a skill that every Special Forces soldier had to learn. Li Jinyan loved rock climbing since he was young, so he trained with Xia Jinyuan. In the first rock climbing competition, he won completely. When the water ghosts heard his nonchalant explanation, they all cursed in their hearts. They obviously knew that climbing was the devil's strength, but they didn't know it was this good. Was it really like what the Great Mermaid said? Was the devil actually hiding part of his strength? Was it because he didn't want them to be shocked and embarrassed? Li Jinyan did not have the time to guess what his comrades were thinking. He wanted to return to the surface as soon as possible to see how his sister was doing. As for Xia Jinyuan, he wanted to marry his sister? Not so easy. You don't have to worry about me. Just watch your feet. Qing Niao, it's up to you to end the punishment early. Li Jinyan, who had taken a few more steps down, raised his head. His usually cold eyes were as calm as a mirror. She is a female soldier. Occasionally, she needs the male soldiers to take care of her. The water ghosts also couldn't bear to see Yi Qian being punished for too long. When they brushed shoulders with the wolves of the Snowfield Brigade, they could clearly feel the oppressive aura emanating from these wolves. They didn't even look at them out of the corner of their eyes and just kept walking down. They were all very worried about Qing Niao. They were all doing their best to help Qing Niao end the punishment. The Great Mermaid said softly, I have to say that Q King's punishment is very skillful. Comrades share weal and woe and help each other. If you are in trouble, I will support you. If you are in danger, I will cover you. In this way, we will support each other and help each other through the flames of war and smoke. We will protect each other's lives time and time again. Qing Niao's punishment will also improve the friendship between her and the male soldiers. Li Jinyan was influenced by his own emotions and really didn't think in this direction. When he heard this, his body suddenly stiffened. Xia Jinyuan's words suddenly flashed through his mind. He said that Qing Niao's future path will not be just an ordinary Special Forces soldier. At that time, he was possessed and worried that his sister would be punished. Even if he calmed down, he didn't think too much about it. Chapter 2746. But now the words of the Big Mermaid had enlightened him, and made him think deeper about it. Although the Snowfield Brigade was a Special Forces unit, it was actually divided into 2 categories. The team members who used letters and numbers as code names were in charge of surprise attacks and focused on accepting overseas missions. On the other hand, the team members who used Chinese code names were in charge of surprise attacks and were responsible for more domestic missions. When the two teams were combined, they could attack and defend. On the other hand, Q King was the king of the surprise attack team. The king of the surprise attack team had yet to appear. Could it be, that the military wanted to groom his sister to become the king of the surprise attack team of the Snowfield Brigade? As this thought flashed through his mind, many things made sense. Many things could be explained clearly. Xia Jinyuan's intention was to let his sister build trust with the team members who used Chinese code names in advance so that they could share weal and woe together. Only in this way, when his sister became the king of the team members who used Chinese code names one day, it wouldn't be considered as a sudden arrival and would be quickly accepted by her comrades in all aspects. When he thought of this, Li Jinyan's heart was filled with all sorts of feelings, and he felt extremely upset. Q King was able to plan so far and think so carefully for his sister. Compared to him, her brother, he knew better how to enter his sister's heart. 7 years, how many 7 years were there in a person's life? In order to be with his sister forever, Q King had silently waited for 7 years. He had sacrificed 7 years and had never changed. He had only persevered. Li Jinyan, who was still as cold as ice a second ago, laughed softly at this moment. His laughter was a little jerky but also a little joyful. This made the Great Mermaid and the Great Eel above feel confused. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was sweating profusely from helping Yi Qian change his clothes, had no idea that his future brother-in-law was going through a mental cleansing. He was extremely busy at the moment. He was so anxious and busy that he was sweating profusely. His eyes were shooting daggers. He never knew that dressing his girlfriend was such a big challenge. After finding a shady spot, Xia Jinyuan took out the anti-humidity mat from his backpack and laid it on the ground. He then placed Yi Qian, who seemed to be asleep, on top of the mat. When his slender fingers were about to unbutton it, Xia Jinyuan looked at Yi Qian's pale face and said softly, "Little fox, I'm sorry to offend you in broad daylight. I'm a bastard. I hit and scolded you. I'm a violent bastard. When you wake up, you can hit and scold me. Don't blame me in your heart. It's not that easy to be a captain. I have to be fair and just. You're my girlfriend and my comrade. I'm your boyfriend and your captain. I'm sorry, my baby. I can't give you special treatment." As he spoke, he began to undress Yi Qian. Due to the weather, Yi Qian only wore a camouflage combat uniform and a long, dark green t-shirt. She also wore a uniform underwear that allowed her to circulate her inner strength. Xia Jinyuan took off her combat uniform first. Then, he began to unbuckle her belt. Xia Jinyuan, who was busy unbuckling her belt, didn't notice that Yi Qian's fingers were gently flicking at her sides. Even her long, thick eyelashes were trembling. Click, after a slight sound, the belt was unbuckled. Xia Jinyuan, who had pursed his lips, unbuttoned his pants and pulled down the zipper. The moment he took off his pants, the strong smell of blood rushed into his nose. He saw a large patch of blood on the crotch of his pants. The moment he saw the blood, Xia Jinyuan's pupils constricted fiercely. There was so much blood. Chapter 2747. When her pants were taken off, a cool breeze blew against her skin. Yi Qian, who was in a coma, regained consciousness. She had regained consciousness when the belt around her waist was unbuckled. Now that her pants were taken off, she became even more conscious. Someone was taking off her pants. Someone was taking off her pants. No, no, no. The scene before her death in her previous life suddenly appeared in her mind. She fell to the ground weakly. The dirty and ugly thing's eyes made her want to vomit. No, no, no. Her mind was still filled with the scenes from her previous life before she died. The disgusting manager, his vicious words, his disgusting gaze, his shameless actions. She was pushed onto the table by him. his filthy hands touching her body, and she fought back and finally escaped, finally. Finally, she grabbed a fountain pen without a cap and stabbed it into the ugly thing's arm. When he hit her head and made her bleed, she grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed it into the person's chest. Everything was over. She was not violated. The person made a strange sound in his throat and finally fell to the ground with a loud thud. The moment her pants were taken off below her knees, Yi Jian, who was in a coma, suddenly opened her eyes. The coldness in her lower body made her eyes almost pop out of her head. Without thinking much, she raised her feet and resisted with the fiercest posture. Xia Jinyuan, who was focused on taking off her pants, didn't pay attention to her upper body. He didn't expect Yi Qian to suddenly wake up and kick him without saying a word. Xia Jinyuan, who was caught off guard, was kicked in the shoulder. The force of the kick was so strong that he fell a few meters away. Yi Qian used too much force and a sudden cramping pain came from her abdomen. It was so painful that her vision turned black and she almost fainted. She wanted to move her body again, but she realized that her whole body was so sore that she couldn't muster any strength. She subconsciously screamed at the top of her lungs, "Captain Xia! I'm here, I'm here!" Xia Jinyuan, who had been kicked a few meters away, heard the sorrowful roar. He was so shocked that he lost his composure like never before. He rolled and crawled over. I'm here, Yi Qian. I'm here. Hugging her tightly, Xia Jinyuan gave Yi Qian the greatest sense of security. I'm here, baby, I'm here. I'm right here. I was the one who changed your pants just now. It wasn't anyone else, it was me, Xia Jinyuan, who was hugging her, was heartbroken. His eyes were bloodshot. His lover, his baby. Her little face was full of fear, and her bright black eyes were gray. It was as if her whole world had been destroyed and could never be restored. Her slender body trembled again and again. Not only was there fear on her face, her entire body was exuding an aura of despair. How could this be? Something was wrong, very wrong. His lover must have experienced something that he didn't know about. This kind of thing caused permanent damage to her body and mind. It was engraved into her bones and would accompany her for the rest of her life. Xia Jinyuan couldn't care less anymore. He lowered his head and kissed Yi Qian's trembling lip. I'm right here. Don't be afraid, I've always been here. He said it over and over again, kissing her lips over and over again. There's no one else, just me. Look at me, touch me. There's only me, Xia Jinyuan. There's no one else, understand? No one else. Chapter 2748. Not only did he hug her tightly, but Xia Jinyuan also pulled Yi Jian into his arms. She was nestled in his arms like a baby. He hugged her tightly with one arm and held Yi Jian's right hand tightly with the other hand. Their fingers were intertwined and held tightly. You're on your period and your pants are all wet with blood. I need to change your pants for you. Little fox, there's no one else but me, Xia Jinyuan. With me here, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Leave everything to me. Don't worry, I'm here. He kissed her with every word he said. His arm hugging her tightly was giving Yi Qian peace of mind. He was telling Yi Qian that the man she loved the most, the man she trusted the most, was by her side, protecting her. The memories that she didn't want to recall the most in her previous life rushed out like a flood, but they were slowly closed by his gentle and strong embrace. Yi Jian's dilated pupils slowly returned to normal, and the despair that came from her bones gradually dissipated. Captain Xia. Captain Xia. Yi Qian murmured a few words in a low voice. She suddenly took the initiative and kissed the man who gave her peace of mind a little fiercely. His embrace, his kiss. She wanted everything about him. She wanted everything. She wanted to make him hers, take him for her own, make him her own, and not let anyone see or peek at him. This man who walked into her heart like a ray of light, dispelled the haze of her previous life, and brought her gentleness in this life. He was hers. His entire life was hers. Yi Qian was so passionate that Xia Jinyuan retreated. She tore open his clothes and frantically stroked his body like a fish. She was too passionate, too abnormal. Her abnormal passion made Xia Jinyuan calm down. He was even more certain that something was wrong with Yi Qian. What exactly happened to make her so scared? Taking off her pants. It wasn't that they hadn't done it before. They had even done it twice at the hotel. At that time, she was as shy as a budding flower, allowing him to do whatever he wanted without any abnormalities. They had both taken off their pants today, so why was there such a big reaction? No. Although they were both taking off their pants, there was a big difference. One was done when she was awake, and the other was done when she was unconscious. In other words, the key to the abnormality was the coma. Could it be that someone had made the little fox unconscious and wanted to do something bad to her? As this possibility flashed through his mind, Xia Jinyuan, who was kissing her with his head lowered, suddenly had a fierce look in his eyes. There was a murderous look deep in his eyes. Xiao Zi, this enthusiasm was simply too much. She was too passionate, too abnormal. Even if it made him excited, he couldn't think of anything else. Instead, it made him even angrier. Her abnormal passion and eagerness to seek protection made him completely certain that his lover must have been hurt. It's all in the past, baby. I'm here with you now. Don't be afraid. It's all in the past. The steady voice spoke slowly, trying to dispel the haze in her heart. There was the sound of running footsteps in front of them. Someone shouted, "Qing Niao, what happened to Q King?" The way she called out, "Captain Xia," just now was so sorrowful that it made all her comrades' hearts sink. They were all shocked by the despair in her voice. Without thinking about anything else, they threw their rifles over their shoulders, grabbed a piece of wood hanging by a rope, and rushed into the forest. They thought that something had happened to their captain. "Stop right there. Don't come in," Xia Jinyuan shouted as he held down Yi Qian's restless hand with one hand. Chapter 2749. His comrades, who were rushing over, slammed on the brake. They were going too fast and were suddenly stopped, so the inertia caused them to stumble forward 2 steps. "Q King, what happened over there?" G3 raised his hand and stopped his comrades behind him from moving forward. He stood at the edge and looked into the forest where no one could be seen clearly. "Do you need us to come over?" "No need. Everyone retreat." Xia Jinyuan's voice was suppressed and low. "Everyone retreat. No one is allowed to enter without my permission." K7 seemed to have thought of something and was the first to turn and leave. Qing Niao fainted and Q King changed her pants. Then, Qing Niao woke up and thought she was being molested. She subconsciously asked for help from her most trusted Captain Xia. The whole process was more or less like that. "We're not going in. Let's guard here. If anything happens, we can rush over directly," V8 said worriedly. K7, who had already walked a few steps away, heard this and had no choice but to stop. He turned around helplessly. "Q King clearly told us to retreat. What's the point of guarding here?" "That's right," he roared at them to go back. Even if something happened, Q King's ability would be able to solve it. They were just overly worried. "Then what about Qing Niao? Is she okay?" "Is Qing Niao okay? Isn't there Q King by her side? Hey, do you have a one-track mind? Do you only know how to walk straight and not turn around? No wonder you're still single. Hey, let's talk about the facts. Don't make personal attacks." Bachelor V8 protested seriously. In exchange, his comrades laughed at him mercilessly. In the forest, Xia Jinyuan, who felt something was wrong after being touched by Yi Qian, pulled hard. Without any hesitation, he pulled Yi Qian's hand out of his pants. Although the abnormal enthusiasm made his body react honestly, he firmly rejected it in his heart. It was not the right time. The timing was even worse. Calm down, Yi Qian. It's okay. It's all in the past. Calm down. After stopping his comrades, Xia Jinyuan stopped kissing Yi Qian, who had lost control of her emotions. He simply hugged her slowly and steadily and said, "Look at me. Look at me. Tell me, who are you looking at? Who's hugging you?" The atmosphere of despair had dissipated. Yi Qian, who was kissed until her lips were bright red, looked up and stared fixedly at the handsome face in front of her who was worried for her. She raised her hand and gently and whispered, "I know who's captain. It's Captain Xia who split the darkness like the light and pulled me out of the abyss. No one else hugged me. It was Captain Xia who hugged me. I can recognize him. He was like a man of light, bringing hope and vitality. How could she not recognize him?" Xia Jinyuan saw a faint smile on her pale face. Her dilated eyes were focused. He lowered his head again and kissed her forehead tenderly with his warm and sexy lips. "Yes, I'm hugging you. I'm by your side. Don't be afraid, baby. I'm here for you." "Yes, you're here, Captain Xia. I'm at ease with you by my side." At this moment Yi Qian was curled up in the man's arms like a kitten. Her slender body was soft and she relied wholeheartedly on the man who was hugging her. With Captain Xia by her side, she was really at ease. Xia Jinyuan kept kissing her, from her forehead to the tip of her nose, to her cheeks, and then to her delicate lips. He kissed her again and again gently. He realized that this was the only way to calm down her fluctuating emotions bit by bit. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.